Hey, Robin.
Oh, your body.
Good grief. Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Ooh, I love your shirt. Thank you. Or is it? No, it's a shirt.
There you go.
What's up these here?
Is there just one page?
Yeah, just sign that, and I'll take all that back. And then, one copy of
Daniel, you going tonight?
Maybe. I don't know about Buffalo. What about somewhere else?
Up here?
Maybe Yamato?
Okay.
No, I don't.
It also depends what comes down here.
Probably.
But yeah.
School system may take,
We got two other.
what's that?
I thought they were gonna be doing it.
Good evening. I'll call to order the regular board meeting for the Board of Mayor and Aldermen tonight, May the 13th, 2024. This time I'm going to start the meeting with a public hearing. Public hearing on a request to rezone parcel located on Old Shelville Highway from Ag to R1. Someone wishing to speak on that public hearing? Not second public hearing. Public hearing to request its own parcel on Old Shelville Highway, That's from ag, adjacent parcel, that's from ag to R1. Anyone wishing to speak on that in a public hearing? Not, we'll go to our third public hearing. A request to rezone property along East Warren Street and South Anderson Street. That's from commercial C2 to C3. Anyone wishing to speak on that rezoning? Now we move to a fourth public hearing. Public hearing to request a rezone to amend Chapter 2 of the Building Code, Section 42, 3.34, surface by substituting an approved alternative by the State Fire Marshal for aircraft hangars or for oil separators requirements of the Title 12 of the Municipal Code of the City of Tullahoma. Speak on that. Oil separators. Now we'll close the public hearing. With that, I'll ask the city recorder to call the roll.
Mocker. Here. Barry.
Here.
Glick.
Here.
Noes.
Here.
Mann.
Here.
Mathis.
Here.
Wilson.
Present.
And with that, is Reverend Nutter, are you here? If you would, please lead us in our invocation and follow that, please, flag. Reverend Nutter.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's bow our heads in prayer. Oh, Lord God, as we gather this night, your word speaks to us, and you speak through your servant, wise man Solomon, who said, in his heart a man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps. And so we would ask this night that you would direct our steps, that you would direct our meeting, so that all things would be pleasing in your sight and to your honor and glory as we serve you and as we serve the citizens of Tullahoma. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Nutter. Okay. Tonight, we do have a couple of proclamations that I'd like to read for you. First will be for the Public Works. So the National Public Works Week proclamation from May 14th, 19th through 25th is advancing the quality of life for all. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vitally important to sustainability and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality in life and well-being of the people of Tullahoma. And whereas these infrastructure facilities and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public work professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and private sector who are responsible for the rebuilding, improving, and protecting of our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, solid waste systems, and public buildings and other structures and facilities essential to our citizens. And whereas the year of 2024 marks the 64th Annual Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association, so now be it resolved that I, Ray Norris, Mayor of the City of Tullahoma, do hereby designate the week of May 15th to the 25th as National Public Works Week, and urge all citizens to join me in recognizing the same. I'd like to present this to our Public Works Director, Mr. Butch Watts. Come to the flag, Mr. Butch. We certainly appreciate all the work that our public work do for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
And secondly, another important proclamation for our Police Week. To recognize the National Police Week 2024 and to honor the services and sacrifices of law enforcement officers that are killed in the line of duty while protecting their families, safeguarding our democracy. Whereas there are more than 800,000 law enforcement officers serving in the communities across the United States, including the dedicated members of the Tullahoma Police Department. And whereas since the first recorded death in 1786, there are currently 24,067 law enforcement officers in the United States that have been made the ultimate sacrifice of being killed in the line of duty, including 5 members in the Tullahoma Police Department. And whereas the service and sacrifice of all officers killed in the line of duty will be honored during the National Law Enforcement Officers Week with a candlelight vigil that on the evening of May 13th of 2024. So now therefore be it resolved on behalf of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen of Ray Norris, the Mayor, by virtue of me and the authority vested in me, I do proclaim May 10th through the 16th as Police Work and Police Week in Tullahoma, and May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of the law enforcement officers and their families in the United States. No flag should be flown at half-staff. Therefore, be it further resolved by the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, publicly salutes the service of law enforcement officers in the community and the communities across the nation that calls upon all citizens to join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who are faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities to render a dedicated service to their communities, preserving the rights and security of all citizens. Mr. Sons, if you'd come for the proclamation.
Deputy.
Oh, we've got Judge G. Kennedy. Okay. Congratulations. Now we have 2 presentations for our study sessions. Would have been a study session. These are special study budget presentations for we'll start with the Tullahoma Airport Authority. Mr. John Glass, you recognize, sir.
Just to start off with our board members, I think everybody's heard our longtime chairman, Paul Sirks, passed away last month. Carla Smith's our vice chairman. She's got 15 years experience on the airport, so she'll step in. No other changes. Our airport staff, our 3 full-time people, we've got about 70 years combined service at the airport. There's only 1 change. We're pretty lucky we don't have much employee turnover. Some of our part-time staff, as they graduate high school or college, they'll go on to a better job, which is what we want for them. Jamie King is our new employee. He's a retired aerospace engineer from Arnold Air Force Base and works part-time for us. On our past fuel sales, we've been going pretty steady since about 2017 at 200,000 gallons. Last year, 2022, was our best year ever at 266,000 gallons. And then last year in 2023, we did 309,000 gallons, which was an all-time record for us. Part of the reason for that, our fuel prices are very good. If you look at all the fuel prices in Middle Tennessee, we're normally about $1 per gallon cheaper than everybody. That survey was from April 10th. Average avgas price at that time was $5.91. We're at $4.95 and $5.20. Special events last year, we had only 7 jets for Bonnaroo. Kendrick Lamar, Shaquille O'Neal came in. Murfreesboro Airport shut down for construction last year. We had 24 aircraft from their flight department that were here for about 10 weeks, and they did almost 30,000 gallons. October Beach Party was average where it usually is, and our military ops, we had just over 7,000 gallons fuel sold, mainly between Blackhawks and Chinooks. Some of the projects we completed, our airport layout plan's been a 3-year process. It's in the very final stages. And then we had runway 624 remarked. Both of those were 100% funded by state and federal funds. Current airport projects, we're replacing a 60-year-old electrical vault that leaks, and we're getting a new beacon. That's with 95.5 funding. Runway obstruction is dealing with trees, which is a every year battle. And then we're doing some grading work on our 2 turf runways. Future project needs, with 82-year-old concrete, we're always replacing concrete. Luckily, that's 95.5 funding, so we just pay the 5% local share. Runway 1836 is my biggest challenge in getting funding for, since it's our secondary runway and not eligible for funding. And we're looking at a new tractor bush hog in probably 3 to 4 years. The bipartisan infrastructure law, we're getting just under $300,000 per year. I would love to use that money for runway 1836, but it's not eligible, so we'll use that for runway 624, probably upgrade our lighting system to LED lights in 4 or 5 years. TDOT did an economic impact study on all the airports in the state about 2 years ago. Tennessee airports contribute $40 billion to the state economy and add about 220,000 jobs. It was a surprise to me, but Tullahoma was actually ranked 2nd behind Chattanooga Airport in TDOT Region 2. And there's some of the numbers for our airport. Goals for this coming year, always safety is our top priority. We look to reduce our funding that we need from the city by increasing our fuel sales revenue, and pretty much operate with our current staffing levels. If anybody has questions, please let me know.
Mr. Glass, several will probably be interested in the status of the fencing around the building there, that you had a little mishap. How's that coming along?
It was fixed today, actually.
Okay, fixed
Started
today.
this morning, and except for the part where the airplane wing actually hit and turned it, the fencing has all been replaced as of today.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you for your report.
Okay.
Secondly, we'd like to hear from the Tullahoma Area Economic Development Corporation. Mr. Brooks.
Hello. It's okay. I'll go ahead and just get started and just greet everyone. Mayor, Alderman, thank you for letting me present to you tonight the work of the TAEDC Board. That might work. Can you go to full screen?
That is full.
Okay, well, that should work. Okay, great. Perfect. Thanks, Lori. Excellent. I'll start again. Mayor, Alderman, thank you for letting me present to you tonight the work of the TAEDC Board. The economic outlook for Tullahoma is good. Tullahoma's killing it. We've got a lot to be excited about. We've been busy since last reporting to you, and I'm happy to report that we've had another award-winning year sharing the good news about Tullahoma. It's critical to have a city ready to do business. Our focus is to sell our world-class infrastructure, our shovel-ready sites, our market area, inexpensive power, favorable income tax and property tax environment, fiber, quality of life, and more. Since being named a great American defense community, I've come to realize that our heritage, legacy, and identity is a defense community, and providing a resilient community that can support the needs of our airmen, guardians, and contractors and their families is the core of much of what we do, and that will also support all the other industries and businesses that come to our community. I look forward to sharing with you some of our many activities to keep Tullahoma top of mind and to help create jobs and strengthen our economy. First, let me just mention and our team. We have an award-winning team. I want to welcome Rich Ellis, Dave Bond, my members for being here, welcome them and thank them for being here. But everything we do is made easier because of our strong leadership. This board wakes up every day and works to make Tullahoma a better place with their dedication to our community and the leadership they bring. And I want to thank them for the service. And I do want to mention them. Dr. Lynn Seaburn's the chairman, Dave Bond, Steve May, John McCord, Beverly Lee, Rich Ellis, and Misty Dameron. Retail Strategies is our retail consultant, and TADC manages this relationship to help recruit new retail to Tullahoma. The good news is we have national retailers that want to locate in Tullahoma. The bad news, we don't have a lot of available commercial space. I do expect there to be announcements this year in some of the limited commercial sites. With Retail Strategies, we are working to develop new commercial sites, and our best effort with that is working in partnership with the Summerlin developer, which I'll talk about in a moment. All right. And can you advance the slide?
Sure.
There we go. This is the one, I had to end on that one, right? This is the four-year sales tax trend, and you'll see that we're at 27.65% over the 4 years. This is why we work with Retail Strategies. 28% is a healthy increase in the past 4 years. The status shows actual collections, and retail impact is an important part of our city and county economy. For example, with the latest developments, it can be estimated that the new retail in Tullahoma has created about 300 retail jobs and significant increase in our sales tax. And if you advance the slide, we work with Retail Strategies because they're an award-winning and respected partner in the industry. Next slide. This slide's always great. I love putting this slide together. We have 25 of the top national restaurants and 35 of the top 100 retailers. You'll notice a couple of new ones top left. And this one does not mention 2 new hotels that will be coming to our area, and one will be a first brand, first location ever. So that's moving ahead. Next slide. Retail Strategies helps us market our community with demographics, custom trade areas, and aerial maps like this. In addition, they have a presence at retail conferences, including the largest one that's coming up soon in Las Vegas, and they have relationships with the brands, developers, and brokers. And if you'll notice in the top right-hand corner, there I am having a Slurpee with Slurpee. That was a lot of fun. Next slide, please. So Retail Strategies develops custom trade area and leakage reports that we provide to expanding retailers. Tullahoma's custom trade area is 133,000. This chart shows that household demands in those sectors. We still have room. So, for example, food, grocery is still a viable option to anchor a new commercial center. Retail Strategies puts this in front of these expanding chains, and as a result, we have new brands looking for sites. As mentioned, one challenge we face is developing new commercial centers so that we can attract more retail. And next slide. Just want to touch on this Summerlin development. So this is an exciting project that our board is working on the tax increment financing for. It will be probably the single largest project ever in Tullahoma at a total project cost of $200 billion. And so we voted to accept the application. The application review committee has reviewed the application. We've marked it up and we've sent it back to the developer. And before long, that will be before you to approve. We'll be having a public meeting. My board, when we get it, it's with the developer. When it comes back, my board will hold a public meeting. We'll approve it and advance it to the city and county. Our board is authorized as an industrial authority to use a TIF, which uses the difference of the newly assessed taxes of the developed project less the base tax. And that difference or increment is then used to finance the infrastructure construction. In our deal, it's a 60-40 split, with the city and county retaining 40% of the new taxes. And so it's pretty generous when it comes to these tax increment financing deals. And we can use that money for however you want for new infrastructure. The city is estimated to retain $10.5 million in new taxes over the next 20 years. Next slide. So our award has been recognized by the International Economic Development Council, the foremost economic development organization in the world, and they've recognized us with three awards, and those awards represent $33 million. One of them is the Northgate Mall project. It's still working, and the Franklin Place Apartments, which used to be Tullahoma Village, and then we were named a Great American Defense Community, and that one was for marketing and branding. Also, one of my board members, as I've mentioned, is retired Air Force Colonel Beverly Lee, and she was recognized as the Tennessee Economic Development Council's Volunteer of the Year for her Arnold Innovation Center vision. Also, the Economic Development Administration and the IADC has accepted the Arnold Innovation Center into their accelerator program to help us find federal funding for that project. Next slide. So this slide, I've just put this in there. At that Economic Development Council in the state, we presented to about 300 policymakers and economic developers throughout the state, and we made some new relationships, met this group out of UT Knoxville, and it's just some of the work we do. We invited them down. They hadn't ever heard of UT Space Institute, so we toured Space Institute. We met with industry. We toured TE Connectivity, and just continuing to build those types of partnerships. And we're doing the same with AEDC, Vanderbilt, and other businesses in the community. So changing gears just a little bit, some of the other work that we are working on, as you're aware, we have been advocating for the Arnold Heritage and Innovation Center. This work has led to valuable partnerships and is supported by the Air Force and other officials, schools, and partner organizations. The Innovation or Events Center will provide a workforce development and training regional collaboration with research and educational institutions, industry, and think tanks, as well as spur innovation for our warfighters and inspire the next generation. It also helps local industry and entrepreneurs. We must have the workforce that companies need so that we can recruit companies and jobs. And with the I-24 industrial site coming online, that's going to be even more competitive. So we hosted in June, scientists and rocket and engineers, we came together to reimagine our impact on the community and submitted what's called a Tech Hub grant through the Science and Chip Act. So we built this consortium of about 60 organizations, and unfortunately, nobody in Tennessee. There were 6 that were submitted. We didn't make it, but we continue to work and have built closer relationships as a result of those. Next slide, please. This is just an example of some of the work we're doing with innovators. We work closely with Launch Tennessee, and we went to Innovation Week. This is the type of organization that we will work to operate the Innovation Center with and provide these types of programs in Tullahoma. And our goal is to be the regional partner with the State Entrepreneur Innovation Department, Launch Tennessee. And just today, working with an innovative company, they're growing, expanding rapidly. They just went from 20 employees to 40 employees, and we helped them submit an application for a $500,000 grant from the state ECD for a very innovative project, which when I get a chance, I will be able to announce. Next slide. So we continue to market our community as having a strong workforce for technology-driven companies. Next slide. So I put this one in here. I'm very proud of the fact that I was selected as honorary commander, and because of my work with TAEDC, AEDC, and the other work that I've been doing in the community. There's a list of honorary commanders, and so we have been invited out for tours and special events at the base and just continue to work on that partnership. We're working very closely with the Innovation Office, and this program strengthens those relationships. And in fact, we hosted a series of events at the Gossick Leadership Center last week, which was Economic Development Week. We had an event every day from Tuesday on to Friday, and we had a high-tech job fair that was very successful. And the reason I left that up there with recruitment at the top is the gentleman pinning that on my lapel is Josh Meeks, and I was sitting with him and number 2 out at the base, and I asked him what their biggest challenge was. It's recruitment to this area. So we've got to continue to push our workforce development. Next slide, please. So again, I just wanted to show you the flyer that we did for that week. In the middle there, we had over 100 people come out to the event, so we certainly appreciated that. Next slide. And again, just out in the community promoting Tullahoma and their workforce, again, with our industry partners. Next slide. More flavor of activity and planning. Next slide. So we're very fortunate, as you heard from Mr. Glass, the city of Tullahoma is fortunate to have an award-winning airport that has a $21 million economic impact. Working with John, we're trying to continue to market the 100-acre air park site we've got there, and one of the projects we plan on working on this year is to refine the marketing. And so I can talk to you a little bit later if you'd like about some of the visits of industry that have visited there. Next slide. So I had to recertify the air park recently so that it's shovel-ready, and so I got this aerial shot. It's kind of interesting because it does show the development going on across the street there with some new housing coming in. And by the way, the job fair we had 10 companies there. All those companies are hiring in our community. So we've got it's great to be able to have new housing coming online so these people can live there. Next slide. So these are our partner organizations that help us reach our strategic goals, and through these partnerships, we can offer our community business incentives and services. And one of the best is the City of Tullahoma's partnership because of their revolving loan fund, and it's very unique when compared to other cities. I don't know of any other cities that have that same ability. Maybe I'm sure they're out there, but it's very unique. Next slide. Again, these memberships, these are some of the organizations that we work with. Next slide. And the reason I put it in there is that they provide some great access to our elected officials and leaders. And here's Scott Desjardins when we visited D.C. Next slide. We've got a new program for existing industry, and we have partnered with TUA to go out and our goal is to meet with industry leaders once each year to be able to talk to them about gauging their satisfaction and find out what types of needs they might have. And final slide, please. So these are our short-term projects. I'm excited to continue our work, also our long-term projects, and we have no new budget request, but I do greatly appreciate the support of the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, and so please reach out to me anytime if I can be of service. And I'm glad to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. That's a very comprehensive report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Where's Panera going?
It would be North Jackson and Jackson Circle. That got it located? Across from Panera. I mean, across from McAllister's. Yeah. Great. Thanks. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate those two reports. At this time, we'll have comments from citizens. All citizens that are interested will be invited to speak for up to 3 minutes about anything that's matter of the purview of the board. Please speak into the microphone and state your name and address.
My name is Greg Gressel. I live at 316 Oak Park Drive, speaking on behalf of South Jackson Performing Arts Center today. I just wanted to bring awareness to the fact and say thank you to the City of Tullahoma for your continued support in the efforts there at the Performing Arts Center, and bring attention to the fact that tomorrow is Charitable Tuesday, which is a day that we're hoping we're going to spend 24 hours having the lines open where you can give and donate for the new chairs and seats that are going into the auditorium. So we have 450 seats going into our historical auditorium, and that's going to be happening in July. And we are close to that goal, but we need the community's help. Normally during this time, we have a fundraiser called the Big Payback, which is a nonprofit fundraiser for all the area, Middle Tennessee area, and for the last 2 years we've not had that, and we've seen a major decrease in some of that funding due to it. So we're kind of creating our own 24 hours of giving. You can go online, you can do any amount donation. It is $300 to sponsor a seat. That seat would then, you can name it in honor and memory of someone, and we can get you all that information, but you can fill every bit of that out online as well when you give. And but we want to emphasize all gifts are great gifts. So any amount does not have to be $300. We would greatly appreciate that, and all of it will go towards the seating that will be installed in July.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one else speak in public comments, it's time to approve the agenda for tonight. And before we approve the agenda that's presented in your packet, I'd like to advise you that there are the first two items on the agenda, the first two motions, it's 1628 and 1629. Those two motions have come before the board previously. In fact, 2 meetings previously. those motions were failed motions. And according to our city code, a main motion that's failed cannot be brought back within the same session. We are within the same session. The same session goes from August to these even years. So with that, those two agenda items will not be heard, discussed, or voted on. With that exception to the agenda as presented, I'd like to get a motion to approve the remainder of the agenda. Motion from Barry, seconded by Mann. Barry, you're recognized.
I don't want to add anything, so don't worry. But I would like to ask that if the people who are here for the beer meeting, if we, after we approve the agenda, that we think about exiting the board meeting and going into the beer board to get that out of the way so they can.
I think that's a very good suggestion. We will do that. We'll go on with the agenda. We got a motion to, Alderman Mamacher, you're recognized.
I'd like to just go on the record that I disagree with the chairman's sentiments. I believe that since you pay a fee of $300 or whatever it is to bring your rezone to the planning commission, and I believe that since you pay a fee to bring that rezone to the planning commission, that we absolutely have a duty to hear it, whether at this meeting or at a future one. And, you know, we re-voted on the mayor pro tem, so I don't know why we're following that rule now. That's all.
That's the ruling of the chair. With that, we'd like to move on with the vote on the agenda as those two items are removed. Vote to yes to approve, no to no. It's passed by a majority vote of 6-1. With that, I will take the prerogative to adjourn the Board of Mayor and Alderman meeting and go directly into the beer board. If you flip your agenda to the beer board, we'll open the beer board. Start with any public comments for the beer board. If not, I'd ask for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Motion from Barry, seconded by Mathis. All vote to approve. Better to vote. The agenda is approved 7-0. No unfinished business. First item on the new business is a request to approve a beer application for a special event promotion and to waive the fees for the Highland Rim Kiwanis Club for Wednesday, July the 3rd, Fraser McEwen Park. Tracy Sargent will be in charge of the beer sales. Motion from Barry, seconded by Mann. Any questions on the application? It's approved, 7-0. Second item on the agenda is also from the Highland Rim Kiwanis Club. It's a 41A Music Festival to be held on Friday, September the 27th, on Saturday and the 28th. That's for the downtown area. That's another ways, and we will waive the fees as well. Tracy Sargent will be in charge of the beer sales again. Motion from Barry, seconded by, didn't see who seconded by Glick. It's been seconded by Wilson. All in favor? Yes. It's approved 7-0. We have a third item on the beer sales. Request to approve a beer application for Mr. Michael Williamson of Williamson Airport, Williamson Aviation, for the special event called Props and Pistons at World War II Hangar on Saturday, May the 18th. William Northern Field. Mr. Williamson will be in charge of beer sales. A motion from Mathis, seconded by Barry. Mr. Wilson, you've done this before. Are you in the audience tonight? He has. He's been approved. Okay. Ready to vote then. And that's approved 7-0. There being no other new business, we'll adjourn the Beer Board. Go back into session with the Board of Mayor and Alderman. We'll go back to the new business. First item we'll hear tonight is ordinance number 1630, an ordinance to amend the zoning map of the city of Tullahoma set forth in Tullahoma Municipal Code, rezone a parcel located along East Warren Street and South Anderson Street from C2 to C3. Passage on the first of two readings.
You passed the consent agenda.
We did.
You want to do this one first and then jump back, or since you read it already? Maybe it doesn't matter.
Let's go ahead and vote now. That's been the.
Which one are you doing?
We voted on
He just announced
1630.
1630, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
We did approve the consent agenda 6-1. We approved it, not the consent agenda, we approved the agenda 6-1. And we approved ordinance number 1630 by 7-0.
No,
We're voting, you're right, okay,
Actually, you skipped all the reports.
excuse me, I sure did. We'll get to that.
We're jumping around.
Okay, we'll just make it exciting tonight. Ready to
Just
vote
make
on
up our rules.
1630.
That's what we do.
Yep.
It passes 7-0. While we're on the roll with these ordinances, we'll do 1631. An ordinance to amend the chapter 2 of the building code. Section 4412.3.3 is floor service by substituting an approved alternative to the state fire marshal for aircraft hangar oil separator requirements. Title 12 of the building code. That's passed in the first of two readings. And essentially what this is to, instead of having a oil separator in the floor, you have to pre-treat the oil, anything that would go down, so it's a way to avoid having to put the separator in the floor. You can pre-treat before it goes to the floor. Okay, got a motion from Barry, seconded by Mann.
I guess I missed my opportunity, but I had a question about it. I'll ask later, it's fine.
This is 7-0. With that, let's interrupt the flow of things and go back to, thank you for the reminder, and go back to reports from the Board of Mayor and Alderman. And tonight, let's, Alderman Almacher, since you reminded me of that, we'll start with you. Your report's first.
Been nice to have a little breather. I guess I'll be on a more permanent vacation in the next couple of months. I have no report other than I'd like to thank the hard work that the city employees are putting in, and I missed the employee appreciation luncheon for the first time since I have been on this board in the past 4 years, but I did pay attention to from afar and would like to thank those individuals for their dedicated service to the city of Tullahoma. Yeah, it'll be nice in a few months for my ears not to be burning 24/7. That'd be great. Thanks.
Alderman Wilson.
No report. Thanks, Mayor.
Alderman Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Over the past couple of weeks, I attended, with most of you, the groundbreaking at Johnson Lane, which I know we are all glad is underway, as well as our Arbor Day celebration at East Middle. I also attended the South Central Alzheimer's Tennessee Purple Olympics. I want to acknowledge Ms. Fran Gray and all of her volunteers and participants for taking the time to raise awareness and funds for such an important cause in a very creative way. Last Friday, I joined fellow Rotarians and board members, as well as our city attorney and downtown champion, Steve Worsham, at the Tullahoma Noon Rotary to accept a donation to the city of Tullahoma for our downtown planner project for $15,000. I want to publicly thank our Noontime Rotary Club for that generous donation and their support of this project. I also want to thank and acknowledge Joe Keller from London's, Thor Melson with Edward Jones, the Tullahoma Chamber of Commerce, and Clayton's Shoes for their commitments to donating towards this project as well. And following Rotary on Friday, I was honored to attend the promotion ceremony here at City Hall for several of our police and firefighters. I want to acknowledge and congratulate Tullahoma Police Department's Deputy Chief Jason Kennedy, Sergeant Michael Wilder, Corporal Candace McGee, and Tullahoma Fire Department's Engineer Joseph Hale and Engineer Joseph Pennington. Thank you all for your service to this community, and congratulations again on your promotions. That's all I have.
Alderman Barry.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to sound like repeat over here. Since we last met, I attended the employee appreciation. That's always such an amazing thing. And, you know, when we see people who've been with the city 25, 30 years, I mean, even 5 years, I mean, that speaks a lot, I think, to the culture that we've created here. And I'm just extremely proud to be a part of that. I was able to go out and meet our community engagement officer and Mr. Eric Pierce on West Lincoln for a demonstration of the infrared technology that we're using. I hate to say technology, it's a giant propane thing, but it's actually really cool. We've got an item on our agenda this evening that we'll talk about more. That's extremely exciting, and huge shout out to Butch and Public Works for looking for ways to do these, and Miss Emma for her work that she's been doing on social media and kind of really getting the news out there on what we're doing, focusing on some of the positive stories, especially from the staff. I think that's exciting. The Johnson Lane, that's huge. I think Kurt, this was kind of his baby there from the beginning, so that we're finally seeing it for 20 years now, right?
Yeah.
So we're finally seeing that come to fruition. And we all got pictures to permanently remind us how terrible we are at holding shovels. Although they didn't give us a countdown, right? They just kind of took a picture and said thank you, so.
You can see the people who've held a shovel before and those who haven't.
Yeah. Then, you know, we followed with the Arbor Day. That's 26 years in a row that we've been named as a Tree City USA. That's pretty exciting. The Purple Olympics, if you haven't attended one of those, it's a pretty neat event. And now you can go to those and you can get your picture taken with what they call it, the Alzheimer's man. It was designed by Mr. John Gray, and it's a life size that you cut out, donated by Alderman Mann over here. I'm excited to share those pictures out. And also join fellow Rotarians, the downtown. I'm excited about that project because we've done several different projects, I think, over the years, even while I've been here. And I think that Steve and Derek and those involved have put a lot of thought and effort into this. I got to see Mr. Graham's presentation on that at Rotary, and it's pretty neat to see. So I am excited about that. The promotion ceremonies are always great, and with leading into that, our employee of the month this month is George Dotson. I'm going to I know, Jerry, this is long, but this one's important here. George recently took charge during a very dangerous situation that he witnessed at City Hall. On April 24th, Sergeant Dotson witnessed a fire break out adjacent to City Hall. Sergeant Dotson immediately went into action, notifying dispatch to get fire en route, and then proceeded to evacuate all the occupants at City Hall. I firmly believe that his actions led to the preservation of property and life, and I'm more than honored to nominate Sergeant Dotson for this award, and that was by our police chief. This is very well deserved. I did a ride-along a few months back, and I had the privilege of riding along with George, and when you do that, you get to see their job from their point of view and their perspective, and you get 12 hours in a vehicle to have conversations, and you learn about the person and why they're doing it, what inspired them to do it, and every employee is deserving. It was great to see George do this, and I think that it just kind of epitomizes the type of employees that we have across the entire city of Tullahoma. And I'll shut up now. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Alderman Berry. Alderman Glick.
I also went to the groundbreaking for the Johnson Lane restrooms and concession stand, and I'm really happy that the project's moving forward finally. It's been a long time coming. I'm really happy for those people in the soccer leagues. I mean, they've really waited a long time for this, and I'm glad it's finally coming to fruition. Another thing I did is go to the Soapbox Derby, and it was the first Soapbox Derby we've had in, I think, 2 or 3 years. And it was a great event as usual. I can't remember, how many is this for us now? Is this 21 or 23? Okay, so the 23rd Soapbox Derby. During that time, we've sent a lot of drivers to Akron, Ohio, and we've won 2 world championships, which is kind of unheard of for a town our size. So I'm really proud of that event, and the rec department did a great job with it.
Concur. Alderman Mathis.
Thank you. Our baseball and softball teams are both the district champions. The baseball team will play here Wednesday, and they will play Loudon. That's in the sectional. If they win that, they will move on to the state tournament, the big show. Our softball team is playing at this moment, and they're playing Upperman, and if they win that, they go into the finals of the region, and then the same sectional thing from there. So they've had outstanding years. They have really done well. Our whole athletic program at Tullahoma right now is doing real well. So it's good. So go out and watch them if you can Wednesday.
Absolutely. Well, I attended the South Central Tennessee Development District Regional Meeting over in Mount Pleasant and the THA special session. Last Monday, I had a special day. It was the Mayor's Youth Council. And the Mayor's Youth Council was exemplary as to what a young group can do. They are outstanding, and they shadowed each department. I had the opportunity to be shadowed by the mayor and the vice mayor of the Youth Council, and certainly did an interesting job when they had a mock meeting here. We had the service awards for all of our employees who have made 5-year milestones in their tours with Tullahoma. Great to see those people getting those 5 years, 10 years, 15, and then on to 30 years and so on. The awards luncheon was special. And we had a presentation for our awards for their promotions ceremony for the police department and the fire department. It's great to see those guys coming out in their dress uniforms and actually celebrating milestones in their careers, and it's great to see all the aldermen here supporting them. Certainly, the alderman mentioned all the activities going on in the city that we've supported during the last 2 weeks. It's been exciting 2 weeks for sure to get to do that. On a note, we have a study session, special study session coming up on next Thursday, this week. I will not be in town that week, so I will be passing the gavel to our Mayor Pro Tem for that meeting, so I appreciate him standing in for me. So with that, let's go back into the regular session here. I'm sure you'll handle it well.
We will.
Moving on to item number 7, this is Resolution 1995, request from Alderman Daniel. You still haven't done the consent agenda? You didn't get it. Let's go back and approve the consent agenda with the modifications that I made. Motion from Barry, seconded by Mann. Any comments? No comments? Ready to vote? Okay, consent agenda is now approved. 7-0. And going back to our reports from City Attorney.
I just have a very brief report. I also participated in the Youth Council event last Monday and had two delightful young ladies that I shadowed. I took them around to various departments of the city and to the courthouse, to the various offices that I deal with in relationship to city affairs, and we had a really good time, and I saw all of the other department heads participate in that program, and I think it was very positive for our town. I want to announce to you through the help of Derek Mann and Court Glick and other people here that the downtown landscaping program is going to start May the 28th. They're going to start the work on that, and I'm really excited about that. Other people contribute to it as well as the ones that Mr. Mann mentioned, and Ms. Wilson has helped us considerably in the financing arrangements for that, and I just hope that the city will maintain those plantings after they're planted in years to come, so we'll have a really nice center of downtown here in Tullahoma. Also, I'm preparing now the data necessary to give you all a periodic report on the matters that we have in court.
Thank you for that report. Report now from our city attorney, Mr. Wortham. Mr. Wick. Mr. Quick.
All right, I've been busy here scratching things off the list that we've mentioned several times. On Friday, I think it was April 29th, I, along with several of the aldermen, attended a meeting with Marsha Blackburn at the Manchester Conference Center. It was good to be able to sit down with other city officials, county officials, and talk about things that are going on in Tennessee. And then 3 days later, I was in Marsha Blackburn's office as a member of the Arnold Community Council. Our community engagement officer, Emma Cook, and I went along with several members of the Arnold Community Council, and I have to tell you, I was really impressed with the activity within the council, but also the meetings that we were able to attend. We attended with Senator Blackburn, Senator Haggerty, Representatives Desjardins, Rose, and Green, and we were able to make some really good contacts. What impressed me quite a bit was the amount of knowledge that the representatives had about what's going on in Coffee County, what's going on in Tullahoma. And it was really good, but even more important, I think, was the fact that we were able to make some really key contacts with staffers, with their board or their assistants, and that's already starting to pay off. I've already called Representative Desjardins and asked a couple of favors, and he's already been able to help some friends in D.C., so that's always good. We met, we being Butch, myself, Sue, and I believe Charles may have been in our meeting with the feasibility study vendor that we're looking at. Came in, explained to him further about what we're looking for, and he was able to do a tour, take some pictures and videos, and Butch was able to unearth some of those previous pictures and videos. Our directive to him is we don't want to start over from scratch, but take that report that we had previously received and build upon that to come back with recommendations on what he thinks is best for us and for the City Hall building. We did talk about the Mayor's Youth Council, Soapbox Derby. I went to the Tullahoma Fire Department agility testing, which is for all new candidates, all new applicants for a fire department's position. And if you ever want to see what a workout looks like, you need to go check that out. It is amazing, the rigor of that course and the different exercises they have to do. And then as soon as they get done with that, then they have to go sit down and take a written test. So it tests, the mental aspects and also the physical aspects. But we also continue to have more and more people coming from out of town and out of state for these positions. We have someone that came from Knoxville, Tennessee, just for this position, somebody that came from Pennsylvania just for this position. And what's really good is the person from Knoxville, the person from Pennsylvania, they are firemen now. So they come already prepared to take on the task, but it tells you that it shows that our fire department is one that is seen by others as one they want to be a part of. So I'm very, very happy with that. Tomorrow, I, along with a few others from City Hall, will be attending Women Impacting the Community. It's an event. Our own Sue Wilson has been nominated, and she is one of 3 finalists for the Business Position Award. So we wish her all the best, and very proud of her and the continued work that we all know that she does so much behind the scenes. Last thing I'll mention is a couple things. Thursday, Special Olympics is going to be held at Tullahoma High School. Some of our city employees are going to be volunteering and going over there. They're still in need of volunteers, so if you're able to stop by, I hope you'll do that, and if nothing else, cheer on these great athletes. And to echo what Coach Mathis says, we have a lot of great athletics going on in Tullahoma High School. We have 2 athletes who are going to be attending the state decathlon meet tomorrow, and then we will have 4 that are going to be going to the state track meet next week. So definitely concur with Coach Mathis that there's a lot of good things happening with Tullahoma athletics. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Quick. Moving back. Resolution number 1985, we've got a motion from Barry and seconded by Almacher. Barry, do you want to introduce that motion?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I think this one is pretty, I don't have the page here, in the resolution itself, pretty self-explanatory, but on the Governor Lee signed a bill that goes into effect on July 1st, and this requires our local law enforcement to communicate with federal immigration. Previously they had kind of the option or the choice. They are now required to communicate with federal immigration authorities if they discover people are in the country illegally, and it mandates their cooperation in the process of identifying, detaining, and deporting when needed. There are some other things in the bill, such as, or the bill that, requires to validate status. It goes into jails, a bunch of other things. But this resolution affirms our status. It affirms our commitment to enforcing state and federal laws, and it will also authorize police department and our administration to, with this new requirement, to go and seek the training and any support that they need in the enforcement of this.
Almacher, you recognize?
Well, I appreciate the sentiment of this. I find it somewhat dilatory. I think the effect of the bill basically creates a prohibition on sanctuary cities to where they are not allowed to be commonplace or to take, municipalities no longer have the authority to create a sanctuary city under the bill. And unfortunately, one of the reasons I came here tonight was because of this particular item. I had, even though I've been off scene, I had several people reach out to me concerned because they didn't understand the purpose of this, and they thought that we were actually creating a sanctuary city because they didn't see the not. And that created a little bit of a panic, and I think that while I agree with the sentiments, I think that it created some ambiguity, and I think it's unnecessary. So,
further comments? No further comments. We're ready to vote. Passes 6-1. Item number 2461. A request from the Public Works Department to approve a semi-annual Tennessee Department of Transportation contract for routine maintenance of the state routes and authorize the mayor to sign. Motion from Barry, seconded by Glick. Mr. Administrator, you got the background on this?
Yes, sir. This is something that we do on a semi-annual basis. It allows us to make repairs to any of the state's roads that we see. It has a $275,888.60 cap on it, but this is a routine MOU that we've signed throughout that basically gives us the ability to do so and then charge that back to the state.
Any comments? Ready to vote? Passes 7-0. Item number 2462, a request from the Tullahoma Police Department to approve the purchase of one 2023 Ford Explorer Interceptor and uplifting the vehicle with emergency equipment from Lonnie Cobb Ford for $49,242 and one 2023 F-150 admin vehicle at a cost of $54,720, and one 2024 Ford Explorer admin vehicle at a cost of $46,741. A motion from Barry and a second by Mann. On Barry, you're recognized.
If they want to speak on it first.
City Administrator, you're recognized.
Yeah, this is just basically on January 22nd, this was already approved by the board. We had looked at trying to space out the purchase of those vehicles. In doing so, we have found that we will have some significant cost savings if we go ahead and do this now versus if we were to wait as we had intended maybe until September or October. We have until, I think, the 2026 to spend these funds. We were able to secure these cars, and what we're finding in working with Chase is, once you see that car, if you don't secure it, they're going to pass on, and then so you don't know when another one's coming in. This is off of the state contract, and it's something that we feel like we should go ahead and do because it will save money in the future.
Very good. Any questions? Any comments? Ready to vote? Passes 7-0. Item number 2463, a request from the Public Works Department to approve the use of FY 23-24 TDOT maintenance contract paving funds to pave various strips of patches on Highway 41A and North Jackson Street and Northwest 55 East, not to exceed a budget of $130,889. Motion from Barry, seconded by Mann. And Public Works Director, you're recognized.
This is our money to help just approve the contract for this coming fiscal year. This is our money from this year that we're trying to extend. If you know, last year we did a patch out on 41 out by Burger King out in that area. Same difference, there's places out there. And we're only allowed to go up to so many feet. You can't get beyond, I think it's 800 feet.
Strip patches, so that's what we're doing, using the money on some places on 55 and 41.
Any questions? Thought we were ready to vote.
Just
No,
while-
Mayor, excuse me.
Yeah, just while you're here, because it comes up all the time, and just to have you on camera.
Sure.
Can you explain why 41 and Wilson Avenue and those get treated differently, and why we do this with the state contract? And I know the answer, but.
Yes, we try to go out and find these things because this is our contract. We get, on this contract, let me kind of back up a little. The contract gives us some cleanup, litter pickup, bush hogging, mowing of the right-of-ways on 55, 41. But on the paving end of it is, those are state routes. Otherwise, we use this money to patch or do whatever we can to fix these spots. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the money to do it. But it's state, it's all state routes. And they pick, the contractor, we don't get to pick, it's the state contractor. They get to pick the contractor. As you guys see, you get these, what they're called P5s in there, and they have the lowest bid on those. So that's what it is. We like to try to use it when we can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Any further questions? Ready to vote? Passes 7-0. Item number 2464, request for the police department for authorization to surplus 4 seized vehicles and to obsolete 1 patrol vehicle. Motion from Barry, seconded by Mann. Mr. Quick, you
Yes,
want
sir.
to bring that forward?
Our police department continues to do some really outstanding work on seizures. And these are 4 vehicles that were part of efforts over the past several months, which forfeiture occurs, so we're able to seize those. Once we seize those, then we put them in gov deals, or we do what we can to surplus them. We also, as you'll see, the very first unit, 309, is one that is one of the stragglers, if you will, of the surplus program. We did a massive surplus of about 11 vehicles several months ago, and this is one that's ready to be surplused as well, and we should be just about done with that after tonight.
Any questions? Ready to vote? Passes 7-0. Item number 2465, a request from the fire department to approve the purchase of 4 GTAC mobile tablets for a total of $13,560.84. Motion for Barry, second by Mann. City Administrator?
Yes, sir. The bug has gotten our chiefs tonight. Chief Sons is not able to be here, and Chief Pearson as well, so send our best thoughts and wishes for them. Basically, these GTAC tablets are going to allow us to be able to communicate better with the Coffee County Communications Center. They've upgraded their systems into some kind of new CAD software. This will allow us to be able to communicate more effectively with them through this purchase. The purchase will be coming from our technology budget. It's money that we have budgeted. We just didn't specifically allocate it for the fire department, but we feel like this is an excellent opportunity for us to use that money, money well spent.
Very good, thank you. Any further questions? Ready to vote? Passes 7-0 as well. Item number 2466, a request from the Planning and Codes Department to request to allow special community event signs in the public right-of-way and waive fee permits for the Highland Rim Kiwanis Club. That's for the music festival. Motion from Barry, motion from Mann, seconded by Barry. And for that, I'll turn to the city administrator again.
This is, similar for the 40, that we've done in the past for the 41A event for a Highland Rim, or I'm sorry, for the Kiwanis Club of Highland Rim. We're just getting this out of the way early, so it's one less thing that I need to worry about when it comes to the event time.
And ready to vote? Passes 7-0. Item number 2467, a request from the Public Works Department to approve the infrared pavement preservation work in the Westwood Street area not to exceed $16,000. Motion from Mann, seconded by Barry. City Administrator.
One of the most, I think, popular things that the city has done over the last several months is use the infrared paving preservation technique or technology that we're asking for here tonight. It's what was used on West Lincoln Street in order to try to smooth out some of those cuts and some of those other areas that was making it very difficult to travel. So what we're asking for is the ability to piggyback off of a contract that is through Goodlettsville, which the state allows, that would allow us to now take that same technology and go around the Westwood Avenue area. The best way to describe it is I had Butch came and grabbed me, and we drove over West Lincoln, and I was just oohing and awing, and then we turned on Westwood, and it was basically he had to put it in four-wheel drive. So that is a very treacherous drive for so many people. So we're wanting to be able to use that same technology, go through the Westwood Avenue, Westwood, Crestwood Avenue areas, and try to use that same technology. And we're asking for you to allow me to sign that not to exceed $16,000.
Barry.
Yeah, awesome. Can we maybe look at getting a list of places that we may want to do this?
I can tell you this, if you ask Butch where any pothole is in Tullahoma, he has a list. He's got a spreadsheet, so
yeah.
I'm sure we could make that available to you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Ready to vote? It passes 7-0 as well. Item number 2468, a request from Emma Cook, our Community Engagement Officer, to approve the web services sales agreement with Revise, is the name of the company, in the amount of $28,900 and authorize the mayor to sign the contract. A motion from Barry, second by Mann. Alderman Allmarker, you're recognized.
So I know we just redid our website, and I was looking at some of what all was included in this, and twofold, I'm not against updating anything that needs updating, but I was curious as to what this does that we don't currently have with our web technology. And number two, is Emma Cook a department head? The only other thing I don't see in this is what departmental budget this would come out of and what account that would get credited to for Sue Wilson. And are just regular employees now allowed to bring agenda items? Not that I have anything wrong with it, I'm just saying, like, these are questions that I feel like maybe should be addressed by the city administrator as to, is this something new? Is that a new department? Is this going to be on our organizational chart? How come this person can bring agenda items, and what can this website do that we don't currently have access to?
City administrator recognized.
Excellent question. One of the things that I'm most proud of in the past 6 months is the hiring of Emma Cook as our community engagement officer. I think she has done an outstanding job. As you know, we have so many department heads to do outstanding jobs, and I try to provide them the opportunity to come before not only the board but the community to show the work that they're doing. And this was an opportunity for me to be able to have Emma come forward and present this. One of the challenges that I saw immediately upon coming to Tullahoma and looking at our website is, while the front page or the storefront window may look good, there's some issues behind the scenes that have been brought to our attention by the vendor that we currently have. One of the challenges, quite honestly, that I had is the vendor told me that he had the opportunity to fix all of them, but it was going to cost us $4,500 for this module, $4,500 for that module. And then through subsequent conversations, I quickly determined that our relationship with them is going to be transactional, not relational. And that's not the kind of relationship I think that we should have with a vendor. Let me give you a great example. When you have websites, you will have links to other websites. I had the vendor explain that we had 12 broken links, but he was not willing to tell me unless I paid him $4,500. And then, you know, during my conversation with him, the comment was, I would think that he would want us to look our best, so that would make him look his best, but that didn't bode well. With that said, I asked Ms. Cook to come on when she did, and simultaneously she worked with Adam Booker, our IT specialist, and I asked them to find out, one, is the current website and the vendor we're using the best one? And if it is, then I'll need to figure out a better way to work with them. Or number two, is there a better opportunity for us? And so they spent countless hours looking at this, and when they came with this recommendation, showed me the financials on how it made sense. I thought it was a great opportunity for her to be able to bring that forward to us, so that's why she is listed there. She is here prepared to speak to this, should there be any questions. There are, again, backroom issues, if that's the term, behind the scenes issues, behind our firewalls, behind our coding and some of the other things that have us concerned. And I think this is an excellent opportunity for us to look forward. The last thing I'll tell you is it's going to help us communicate better with our people, which is one of the things that I think we need to do. We've done a better job with, and we need to continue and use that website as a valuable resource and tool. So that's my response.
So, sorry, another question.
Alderman Berry, you're recognized.
Yeah, well, one of the questions that Alderman Allmarker had asked is where the funds were going to come from, and I just want to make sure I'm reading this right. On page 144, under the heading fiscal impact, it tells us the budget account and the budget account number of where these funds will come
Correct.
from.
Correct. This money, it has been
Coming
budgeted.
from technology.
We just have not used it yet.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So it says city's legislative technology budget account, which I would assume legislative would mean for this body, not for city operations. So that was one of the reasons why I asked. But the other thing is, we are switching contractors from Civic Plus to Revise. Are we currently under contract, and what are the monetary ramifications for switching?
Yeah.
If we're currently under contract, won't that be a breach of our contract?
The contract.
Or does it
The
expires?
contract is upon expiration. I would never break a contract and cost the city money unless it was absolutely necessary. In this case, unfortunately, it's not. We're at the point where we are being solicited by Civic Plus on a weekly basis to renew the contract, which we have told them we are not ready to do so. So there will be no breaking of a contract. It's basically, instead of renewing with a vendor that we're not comfortable with, we're looking to go with a vendor that we have researched and vetted quite well with other cities and feel very comfortable with what they're offering, and it would work best for our city.
So with Civic Plus, when we entered into contract with them, how that occurred, if I'm not mistaken, was through an RFP. So are we not doing RFPs for these now?
I'm not aware of an RFP for this. I would have to go back and research.
Okay. I mean, I'm fine with it. I'm just set the
If an
standard.
RFP is required, that would be news to me.
We did not do an RFP on this one because we had done one so recently on the other one and done a fairly extensive one. And then to update this one to something that was better compliant and had a whole lot more abilities, we were able
Right.
to obtain this one. Actually, it's going to be cheaper. We're going to save money off of the one we already have.
Correct.
Great.
Any further comment?
Thank you.
I have
Emma.
one.
Now we're ready to vote.
I have one.
Oh, excuse me. Alderman Wilson, you're recognized.
Thank you, thanks, Mayor. So the Civic Plus that's the program also that allowed citizens to make requests online and ask questions, which would go out to, does the new software have a platform that will?
Yes, it has a platform. In fact, I think it has multiple capabilities where there's more ability for people to use their cell phones to communicate with this website and issue any kind of request or whatnot. The other thing is Civic Plus is no longer offering, which was part of the package, no longer offering HR support, the platform which we've used in order to take on our applicants' HR and kind of move them through the process. That will be going away at the end of this year, by I think third or fourth quarter. So that's another reason why we want to go ahead and just make this switch. It makes time, or it makes sense to do it at this time.
Alderman Berry.
And just kind of tagging onto that as well, I'm assuming all these modules on 149R, there's the Citizen Request Center, the Citizen Commit, which is Community Blog, which I think we'll have somebody, I'm excited to see us take advantage of that. The interactive forms where you can do like public records requests, online bill pay, the public service request system, that's all.
It's all in there.
I think really cool tools that we don't have now that make things a lot easier. Those are some of the biggest questions I get all the time is where can I do a FOIA request? Where can I report a pothole? Where can I do these things? Right now we have that form that just kind of goes out. It's not very user-friendly.
It's not the best.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah. So that's kind of exciting. I hope that we take advantage of all of the tools in here, and I feel confident with her background and your kind of drive that we'll make full use.
I feel very comfortable with
Of
that.
this.
Let me say this, Emma, I'm not requesting Emma come for the podium. Emma has also been hit by the bug, and so if she didn't have to come forward, she was hoping not to. She's not feeling well, so I'll send my best thoughts to you, Emma.
So we're satisfying any procurement obligations we might have with the amount of this contract as far as not putting it out to bid or anything like that?
Yes, because it's a professional service, and we're going to use the fact that we already had the one, and this is less even than that.
Okay.
Any further comment? Ready to vote? And that passes 7-0. There being no other new business, the Board of Mayor and Aldermen will be adjourned. Take a 5-minute recess before we have study. We appreciate the school board being flexible with your scheduling and Alderman being flexible with our scheduling. It seems like we've had a little trouble getting everybody on the same page, but we're here now. So with that, I'd just like to open the floor to our visitors to step forward and present your presentation that you routinely do before the Mayor Alderman. Stevens, the floor is yours and your team.
Well, very good. We are glad to be here with you this evening, and can't believe we're actually to a place in the point of the school year where it is coming to a very fast close. In 4 days, our 2024 graduates will walk across the stage. In 11 days, all of our K-11 students remaining will complete their school year. And we will move right into summer school. We'll be offering summer programming K through high school. Students have been identified and the directors are contacting them to set up their time in summer school. I do want to say a special thanks to each of you in the city and elected officials in our Tullahoma Police Department for making our first year with SROs a true success. It has been a wonderful year. A few highlights from this previous budget year. We've continued our work on our strategic plan, which has 3 focused priorities: facilities, virtual programming, and school-to-work pathways. This information and any updates can be found on our website at www.tcsedu.net under the district tab. The FARA project is moving along, and the date for us to take over is June 2025. We're hopeful everything remains on track with this renovation project so we can be ready for the opening of the 25-26 school year. Kudos to East Middle School. They are the 3rd school to earn the status of Tennessee Purple Star School, which is recognition for their commitment to and friendliness toward military students and their families. We've continued state level and even national level accolades in fine arts, academics, and athletics. I know many of you are watching some of our teams who are continuing on in competitions. Some of the larger projects from this year, HVAC replacement and duct work at EMS. It's about a $2.5 million project. And our central office had an overhaul done to our entrance sidewalk with handicap access. Some big projects coming this summer. The gymnasium floor at the high school is going to be redone, as well as all of the bleachers, and painting will be done inside the gym. So it will have certainly a very new look come the fall. EverSafe laminate coverings on our doors or windows will be completed this summer. And there's a potential for another big project at the high school involved with some of our locker rooms. That includes the volleyball team, girls basketball, and one of our PE lockers. But we're really here to talk about the 24-25 proposed budget. So Mr. Jordan's going to hand you some handouts, a single-page handout, front and back. And we have enough for each of you, and we have enough for our school board members, our city administrator, and finance director. We'll make sure those get out. And if you look at the first page or the front page, you should see a pie chart there. That pie chart helps to illustrate the revenue sources for the city schools. And as you can see visually, the largest revenue source comes from the state dollars, TISA dollars, with roughly 2/3 of our revenue source coming from there, technically 59.2%. You can see that our next highest revenue source is county taxes, followed by city taxes, followed by the city appropriation amount. And then we have 3 areas that are less than 1%, but they are a part of our revenue stream: federal funds, tuition, and then some miscellaneous items such as interest or gifts or nursing reimbursements. That gives you a sense of our revenue sources. If you look at the next page, the back side, some highlights for you to look at as we are moving toward the 24-25 budget. We look forward to adding a second visual arts teacher at Tullahoma High School. This program has grown over the years, and for the last several years, we really have not been able to accommodate all of the requests. There's been a waiting list year by year for visual arts. That is certainly an item connected to graduation. And we have students who are really thriving and need more extensive art opportunities. So we look forward to that. TVA, our virtual academy, is going to expand into another middle level grade. They will be adding 7th grade next year. 8th grade was added this past year. Our current middle school teacher will serve both 7th and 8th grades. We will be adding 7 response to intervention teachers and 7 response to intervention education assistants. These, by and large, have been funded through federal dollars, and there are requirements and mandates around serving students who have high need. So these positions will be moving into general purpose budget. We also are looking at differentiated pay for high school math educators. And it's important to note, as we do pursue grants, there are times for sustainability. You must pick up the cost toward those grants. And you can see we are picking up 1/3 of the cost of 3 positions that joined us recently. That's our 2 middle school STEM teachers and our high school work-based learning coordinator. Within this budget, we are proposing a step raise that is moving up the step, if you have not already topped out. And a cost of living increase of 2%. Between those 2 items, that is roughly $1 million expenditure for those raises, step and 2%. Something important to lift up, I know you are aware of this, but our state estimates come monthly, and we still are awaiting the May estimate and the June estimate so that we can actually finalize our budget based on the actual revenue stream from the state, as it is our largest revenue source. And Mr. Jordan is here. If you have any other questions that you'd like to talk about related to this presentation, we are happy to answer anything you've got.
Good, we're going to take any comments from the board.
Could I ask a question? When you are referring to differentiated to the math teachers, what exactly does that mean?
Yes, so differentiated pay, the state passed a law, a ballpark between 15 and 17, that you could differentiate pay for hard-to-fill positions. For example, right now, we have some special educators who receive $5,000 in differentiated pay. That's an add-on, because that position is hard to fill. So high school math teachers are moving into the hard-to-fill section of differentiated pay.
Other questions from the board? Someone?
What's the per student allocation for this year's budget?
So per pupil expenditure, $10,700 roughly.
Is that the traditional and virtual, or is there different?
That's for the entire budget.
So Tennessee average for the next year, and we're 44th out of 51 for obviously per pupil spending. We spend less on students than most other states. But we spend approximately $4,000 less per student than the national average as a statewide average. The statewide average for next school year is $11,139, believe it or not. So I mean, what I feel like, and I'm going to say this may be controversial, but if you could kind of step outside the box and listen to a lot of what the debate was whenever the school board race was had. There were people who ran for office who were not elected, but they had valid points. And I would encourage you to really pay attention to what they were saying and the community was saying. I believe you may be a little top-heavy in what you're spending on salaries for administrative, and looking at how you can funnel that money back down into your teachers and your students and your schools, and where the money really should be going. Not that people are not doing a good enough job, but that was really the consensus of the public and why they voted some of the ways that they voted. And even though we have a new school board, that doesn't mean you can't be successful or that you have to not listen to what the constituents said. So we are under the average, not only for the state, but also for the national average and per pupil spending, and I get that. But the problem is not that we are under budget. Our budget is actually higher than what the average is. So what can you draw from that is my question to you. If you're fully funded budget and you're higher than the average budget, but your per pupil spending is lower, I mean, I don't know what you draw with that, but I think that we're not concentrating the money where the money needs to be concentrated. And I do have some, that's your board issue, not our board issue. But obviously, since we're contributing to the budget, the whole purpose of this is for us to give input and where we think, you know, there may be some issues. In other words.
Further comments from the board?
Is there since we are under the average at 10,700, is there Ms. Hallmacher was speaking about the administrative cost versus like for teachers, is there a breakdown to where, that shows where we stand on that against other school systems?
I'm not aware of comparison.
I think it would be great for your knowledge to know, not just ours, but as you're voting going forward and looking at where you're spending the dollars, are you getting the best bang for your buck? Are we as a city getting the best bang for our tax dollars and making sure, you know, special ed is always underfunded. We know that. And your special ed populations continue to grow in Tullahoma. My daughter did not have an IEP when she was at Tullahoma City Schools. Within 2 months of moving to Franklin County School District, she's diagnosed with dyslexia. 2 months. Why? I don't think it's anybody's fault or any teacher's fault. I think it may be lack of resources in some ways. Too much spread too thin, in other words. But to me, I think you have a big enough budget. I just worry, are the dollars going to where they should be going? Are we concentrating them to where they should be concentrated?
So as we think about administrative roles, I think back to last school year's budget, and we added 4 assistant principals and we added a CTE director. What I would say to your question, sort of anecdotally, we were very behind other systems as it relates to a principal and an assistant principal being in a school, having both of those roles. So anecdotally, we were not where other systems were in that regard. I can also speak to that in that this board and even previous boards have had a desire to have those administrative roles because they play such a positive, powerful difference in the lives of students, and allow that principal and AP to share duties and responsibilities. Our CTE director previously was part-time assistant principal, part-time CTE, and so the high school administrative team had some difficulty in figuring out how do we utilize this person who's really a district person but also a high school AP, and in making that change in line with our strategic plan of school to work pathways. It also enabled the high school, which is such a large campus, to have 3 full-time APs, and all are extremely busy along with that principal. So anecdotally, I can say that to your question. In terms of the fiscal note of that, I don't know of a report that exists.
Ms. Wilson, I have a question. So while we represent only, well, city appropriations coupled with sales tax, but city appropriations being only approximately 11% of your total budget, what does the school system represent in the city's total budget? What's the percentage?
12.6 million, 36%.
So is it
About 40, I think close to 40.
about 40%?
Because the sales tax and the appropriation are all part of that.
So I think that is just to highlight the importance of why this relationship is crucial. Because while we are only 11% of your total budget, you are 40% of the money that we spend up here. And why we would be so interested in what is going on with Tullahoma City School District and how those dollars are being spent. So I did want to say that out loud so that people don't think, well, you know, you're kind of sticking your nose where it doesn't belong. But really, you're 40% of what we were elected to be, you know, stewards of. And I think that's very important to have those relationships with incoming board members and to strengthen those relationships in the future because they do need to be strengthened.
I need to ask, in reference to athletic fields. Our athletic fields are being maintained most of the time by our recreation department. Is there any revenue provided to our recreation department for what they do? My understanding, and this came from one of the recreation administrators, that they spend or maintain $150,000 on our high school fields and the maintaining everything. Now, that includes equipment and all that stuff. And I'm just wondering why that's happening.
$150,000 just labor.
Just labor. $150,000 for labor, and they're not getting any funds back whatsoever.
Well, as far as the day-to-day, I mean, there's no, like you said, there's nothing we're being billed for or asked to cover. We certainly share costs on items to, for the turf and all that. We work with Parks and Rec to split those costs as they come in. We are working on, I guess, a contract that's an agreement that's dated 2010 to your point about kind of responsibilities for each party, and that's the last time that agreement was.
We did meet in the spring of 2022 to take that 2010 agreement that we've been working off of to try to get it up to date and current, and that just always remained in draft. I think there were some, changes in personnel on both sides, and so that would be a great thing to come back to the table and talk about.
Yeah, I'd encourage you to work with the Parks and Recreation and Jason with the city to strengthen that relationship. I know it's always been it's near and dear to my heart, and it's been a proud part of the Parks and Rec department to be able to provide those services that they get probably little reward for or recognition for, but also it's concerning to me that when they provide all that labor and all that knowledge and sweat and hard work, and when they have a request for a piece of equipment or the share in the cost of a piece of equipment to maintain those fields, that they're refused, that concerns me that the partnership is not working too well there. So I just, and I'm specifically talking about when they requested or when this board requested to fund half of a reel mower that was going to be used for the football field and soccer field primarily, and that request is denied. So, but the city went ahead and bought it anyway because we know we needed to do it because we want to have the fields in the best shape they can be. So I would just encourage you in the future to help out, help us help you.
I just had a couple things. Growth is a big topic in this community right now for this board. For TCS, how are you guys planning for the growth that's coming right now, down the road? And would be my first question. And my second, class size currently, is class size an issue currently, or is that where you want it to be? And how do you feel about that? Is that going to be an issue as we continue to grow here in Tullahoma down the road?
So I'll step into that conversation and welcome any board member to also speak on that. the board has been looking at 2 schools in particular needing additions, and so right now, the system is not coming seeking any additional appropriation. But in truth, when Bel Air and Robert E. Lee are 2 campuses that are drawing some more of that growth, and we've said for several years that they really need expansions. So we see that, and we know that, and we're working toward that. The FARA project, as I've shared with you before, we tried to make it a little bigger so that some of our out-of-district students can go there, our preschool students can go there. That may free up some East Lincoln classrooms. So we're definitely envisioning some shifts related to growth. In terms of class size, ideally, we'd like them a lot smaller than what is required. We are meeting the requirements, whether it's a 1-to-20 ratio K3 or 1-to-25 4-5, but we'd love them to be smaller. Well, that obviously takes space and it takes money. There's a fiscal impact if you're spreading out more children in smaller chunks across a grade level, if that makes sense. So right now, we are doing well in terms of our spaces, but Robert E. Lee is really pressed for space, and we have been incredibly inventive in taking every space that we can at this point, and we'll walk through it again to see what we can do. But futuristically, we know there's a need out there. We think FAIR is going to help to a certain degree, but those 2 end campuses are the ones, and this is something the board has discussed for some time, and I'll open that up to anybody who wants to jump in on either.
To piggyback off of that, with Summerlin coming in and the majority of the growth being concentrated in the Ledford Mill area, that is going to, ultimately, that would be zoned, because it's on this side, west, and Bel Air. Is Bel Air in a position right now to be able to accommodate the growth that Summerlin and those developments will bring?
So right now, what we know about growth is it happens over time. So we don't get all the students in at one time. What we also know is you get a sampling K-12. So we're not going to get all elementary or all middle or all high. As it is phased, I'm very thankful he visits and is a part of all the meetings related to planning. So he comes back and we talk about what's been approved or what's being discussed, and we're thinking about that. So we're seeing that very subdivision. And that's why I'm lifting up this group that Bel Air is going to need an extension. There's no doubt about it, futuristically. Absolutely.
Are you thinking it will need a new elementary school, or by extension, do you think we will need to, is there space to add on to Bel Air?
There is space to add on to Bel Air, yes. And that's what we're thinking right now. Same for Robert E. Lee.
Are we working on, knowing that and seeing that, are we working on cost estimates and funding? And, I mean, 'cause we know Summerlin's not going to build 1,000 places at one time. You know, we're looking at a 15-year, hopefully for everybody's sake, looking at a 15-year. And I know that, I don't know if TIF can help with some of that stuff. Like, I don't know how all, but when it comes to, you know, if we're 15 years down the road, that's still a problem for today, right?
Yes.
What we don't want to do is get to where it's 5 years, and then we're thinking, oh, crap, we don't have money. We're going to have to, so are those conversations that I'm sure you're having, but maybe we need to start having more kind of joint discussions on, hey, let's talk about funding today so that we have that plan in place now versus.
So things that we're looking at, the sales tax sinking fund, for example, we're looking at when does our payment shift, what year is that, and how will that potentially help us or help us to leverage those dollars. But we will have to come before you for those projects. There is no doubt in my mind.
On the classroom side, as we talked about, like Robert E. Lee, I don't know how, do tuition students, is that an option, you know, decreasing those? If we get to decreasing the number of tuition students that we have to make more room, or not even just to make more room, but maybe if the classroom size is large, to decrease that size.
To give you a sense of tuition students, in our east side schools total, all 3 schools, there are 73 students. On our west side schools, there are 192. So you can see we really largely place on the west side right now. And then our high school and TVA has 192. We have 432 tuition students. And yes, to your point, those are things we're already doing now, is not accepting everyone that has an application in simply because of space and size. So we do see that as a possibility, yes.
Is the misbalance there that is 192 versus 7, is that because they've got to go to that side, or is it because you don't have room on
It is the spacing that drives that.
School choice could limit some of your ability to do that should it pass. So that would not be an option if the bill passes at the state, and they would have no choice but to accept out of district. So that is also something that you need to think about, that if you're unable to do that.
I don't, based off of the crowd size, I don't think this is exciting as a lot that maybe it would be. But since we do have the camera's attention, can you talk about, we switched from the BEP, the state switched from BEP to TISA. Can you just talk about, for the public's benefit, how that differs, what the impact to you is, how TISA kind of breaks down? I know they've got their little pyramid and the different funding and what those different levels, an opportunity to kind of talk to the public and educate them on it.
So the BEP model was a resource-funded model. So that was, just think about what are resources involved in education. TISA is a student-funded model, so 2 different approaches. In TISA, every student receives a base amount of dollars, a base. Then there are weights. There are certain students who have additional weights placed on them. It may be a student who has characteristics of dyslexia. It may be a student who has an IEP. There are varying levels or weights. And that puts a percentage on depending on the weight. So each weight's a little bit different. So one student, let's just say Hank, he gets the base only, 7,000, he generates. And remember, what's important to know about TISA or BEP, it is not a spending plan, it's a funding formula. Those are 2 very different things. So let's say he gets the 7,015. I get that plus I am an EL student, an economically disadvantaged student, and a student with characteristics of dyslexia. I am formulating 3 more levels of weights. Then there are outcomes. Outcomes are assessment dollars that come into play. So that's another part of that triangle you're referencing. So every student, depending on their grade, depending on their weight, just formulates an amount of money. What's critical for every school system, you have to properly code every student. So a student who has characteristics of dyslexia, if that student isn't coded, or they don't have the required ILPD, they're not going to actually generate the funds, even though they have that. So coding is critical. So we have individuals who are going through every list to make sure every EL student has the unique learning code that generates that dollar. So that's very different. So in BEP, it was ADM tied, it was student tied in terms of your count, but not to what a student generated. So it is very different how funds are formulated. Now there's other dollars that come in like growth funds that aren't a part of the estimates we're seeing because it's not predictable. So at points in the year, they will relay to systems, you've had growth, you've qualified for this amount of money for growth, and it's just kind of a one-time thing. Or we had a month where there was no growth. So we had communicated, there's no growth this month, whatever that is. I think they do that 5 times a year. So that's another piece of it.
So you use the Ames Web model to monitor that growth?
So we use Ames Web right now in 3rd grade as our universal screener, and we use iReady everywhere else this year.
Yeah, that's why I bring up the total dollars per student, because we are, as you said, I guess I was under the assumption more people knew that, that, it's based on those dollars per student. I think it's very, very important for you to know that per student average right now, so that, because then that lets you know where you're at and what monies you need to be asking for, so that we can at least be contributing the average amount, whether it be through city appropriations or whether it be through other sources of funding. And I say we as in the city school system, but we're contributing 40%, which is, I think if you look at our budget and you compare that to other towns or municipalities of like size, we are actually getting above the mark. We're above our weight as far as contributions. So I think that you're in a great position with the funding here in the city of Tullahoma and the support, but that support has to go both. I mean, we have to have a better relationship working both ways, and it has to be at the best interest of the students and not for any other factors.
Are we moving to the study session now? Because that's why we're all here. The study session. This is the study session. Okay, we thought this was the budget presentation. Didn't y'all think that?
Yes.
This was the budget
Now,
presentation?
we call this meeting order as a study session.
Okay.
And so we're in the study session.
We're doing it all. We're kind of doing it all. What we took is the agenda that you all had sent us, that Mr. Berry, I believe, wrote. And we did our agenda, since it was a joint study session, to be able to answer some of the questions on here. So we didn't come because I thought that we're going to do fireworks.
No,
We're all here because they're part of answering some of the questions or giving some of the information from what you asked for us. And if we want to get started with that, that would be great.
I have a question though. I was in the middle of a question.
Yes.
If you can give me a moment. I also sit on the planning commission as well as the BMA, and we have a lot of growth that's coming. With the Summerlin project and with a few other things. And my question is, do you have like a long-term range plan for growth, so that you kind of have an idea of of how many students that you currently have and what your plan for growth is?
So somewhat, in terms of where we know the growth is happening, our plan is, number 1, to complete FARA. Number 2, that sales tax saving fund drops. Number 3, come back and say, okay, we've got to move on Robert E. Lee and Bel Air. Those are the priority campuses that have to be next. And so we hope to be here really soon after FARA is done, because it's time. Robert E. Lee is close to just absolute full. Bel Air has some wiggle opportunity right now, not much. So that's our immediate future plan to meet those needs. Because to everybody's point, what's coming doesn't happen there's a phase in of time. So there is time for us to be able to get these things. But we're not going to wait very long before we come back for those 2 campuses, because we can't. And we've talked about it here before. So it's something we're getting closer to actually coming to ask.
I encourage.
So I guess what I'm kind of getting at is there something like a long-term range plan that you have, like a physical thing that we would be able to review? And I realize like the larger developments like Summerlin, that will take some time, but my concern, sitting on the planning commission, is some of the
more medium-sized or, even a bunch of smaller subdivisions that might come a lot quicker.
Yes.
Even, and so to me, like, I'm always trying to weigh out, what I think that we can handle.
Yes. While we don't have a document that you can review, Hank does a great job. There was a recent one where he made comment back to Mr. Rush, hey, if this is coming, the city's going to have to help us with adding on to a campus. So he's front loading. We're getting close to, we're going to need to add to that building. And as you're on that planning commission, I would appreciate you keeping in mind those two ends, because they are the two that are bearing the weight from some of these projects, and that's why we will need them sooner than later. Now, we know FARA will help us because it will pick up some of our out-of-district that we might move, and that'll be great, but it's not the answer.
I think a capital building plan would help us if your board would develop, I think is what Ms. Wilson is getting at, if your board would develop, from your perspectives, a capital infrastructure and building growth plan, or here's what we see is next, and here's where we would like to go, and
that way we kind of all stay on the same page, especially, when we're voting on these things. One of the things I was also going to discuss is when things come for us to pass in the planning commission and in the BOMA, usually in our agenda packet, there will be for each item under consideration, a section with the department heads, the different department heads of the city that they will give, their thumbs up or thumbs down, or their, if how they see that whether or not this particular subdivision is a good idea, and we get that from every department head. And I have often questioned why the Board of Education wasn't a part of that, because that is to me, is a huge piece. Because schools are so expensive, I may be kind of quoting old information, but as it changes daily. But in the last time I looked, it was like $42 million for a typical school. So is that incorrect?
That'd be about the cost of a grammar school.
Right.
I'm talking about Wilson County, Rutherford County, Williamson County. They're opening, the three of them will open up, at least between them, grammar school per year. The middle schools are 60 to 80, high schools are 120 to 150.
And Bedford County is even building new schools, with their growth, and it's all trickling down to us for sure. And even though we're landlocked, we are seeing that expansion. I think you are wise in planning for the expansion of Bel Air and Robert E. Lee.
So we would love to be included in some of those forms. Since I've been here for 4 years, I've only seen a form like that once, and it was in my first year in the fall. I've never seen one.
You mean for me
signing off on anything related
I would love to.
I've got we need to make sure that we'll address that. And Kim, I apologize. On our agenda, it just said budget presentation, so I wasn't even thinking about.
This was the study session that you sent us and requested?
Yeah, for some reason, I was thinking we canceled that, and tonight we were just doing.
You canceled it, but you rescheduled it for tonight.
Oh, yeah, that's not in our packets.
Sorry,
that's why I think that we just kind of went with the.
That's okay, but I really I hope that we will, they've been here, they've been at work since 7, and I really want them to be able to share, and they'll be fast.
Absolutely, I think that's why we just kind of were asking the budget stuff, because we just didn't see it in our.
Okay, it was the one that y'all voted on. I believe you presented it to the whole board, and we were going to try to meet in April, but we know it's impossible to get everybody together, so it got moved. We got an email from Mr. Quick, and we moved it to tonight. Okay, so ready? Okay, thank you so much.
Chairman, you're recognized, and I apologize for not making it clear what we're doing. You've got issues that you want to bring forward, so you certainly want to get that done tonight.
Yes, we would, because this is like, everybody knows, May for schools is crazy busy, and finding another time, and y'all are too. So finding another time would be very difficult at this point. So what we did was
one we were sent, and I think you wrote this, Mr. Berry. We just took this and tried to answer some of these questions that maybe y'all had too, and we brought the people that know it the best. So we're gonna just start, are y'all good with that? Yeah, okay, good. All right, so you wanted to talk about the significant growth, which we've talked about. We feel pretty good about that. That probably will come up again. And we want to share some recent developments, achievements, and challenges within our educational system. And we're going to hear first from Dr. Christina Boone, who is our Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Federal Programs.
Good evening. I have the privilege to serve as the Director of Curriculum, Instruction, Assessments, and Federal Programs. So looking at some of the highlights that I got to share and felt very proud being a new Tullahoma City District member and hopefully family member as I'm establishing relationships here. It was very exciting to be able to share Tullahoma's data. Being a principal for the last 10 years in another district, I know the hard work that was put into these numbers and these successes. So, as I said before, accolades to the educators and the administrators that have put in the hard work along with their students to produce the outcomes that we have seen in this past year. I will ask Ms. Angelston to pass these out to you so you can see the data that we presented in the fall from last year. We had all of our elementary schools and middle schools show achievement gains in all subject areas. So looking at the data that you are receiving, you can see the percentages from 2022 not highlighted, and then in 2023 we highlighted the achievement percentiles in each of these 4 subjects that are tested. And you can see the green and the gain of percentage increase for each of those subject areas. You can go down and look at the breakout of elementary, middle school, and high school with each of those subject areas, seeing the gains in all of our elementary and middle schools when it comes to that achievement. Then at the bottom, just highlighting the celebrations that our district has gained in every subject content area. Elementary has gained in every subject tested. Middle school has gained in every subject content area. And high school has had significant gain in science and are aware of those areas that they are focusing on this year. When looking at other data that our district has obtained in 22-23 school year, we went from a satisfactory designation, having a 1.5 overall score, to advancing and moving that 1.5 to a 2.2 overall, which is a great accomplishment. We had our schools' growth did phenomenal in most all subject areas. Every school, we had 4 out of the 8 all have what we call a 3, which is at expectations. That's adequate growth for 1 year, all the way up to a 5. We had 2 schools that had a school letter grade of B. We had 1 school that received the designation as a reward school. And all grade levels in 4th and 5th grades and math and ELA either grew in all areas or maintained the same. So when looking at elementary schools specifically, when we're talking about the foundation, there is much to celebrate in Tullahoma City Schools, because not only do we have and achieve gains in every single subject in our elementary schools, we also either maintained or grew in each of those growth areas. All EOCs grew or stayed the same in all areas other than our English and our Algebra 2. So overall, looking at that data and me coming in and analyzing the data, and you as a city who contributes to this city school, I'll say very frankly, since I'm probably the newest one sitting in this room, you should be a very proud city supporting and being a part of Tullahoma City Schools, because the level of caliber in the educators and the administrators, as well as the new assistant principals, and I'll tell you too, as coming off 10 years of being a principal. If I did not have an assistant principal in a school that was 400 kids, that actually was a magnet school on top of that, I would not be as effective as I was with an assistant principal. So kudos to Tullahoma City Schools for ensuring, whether it's top-heavy or not, that those assistant principals are in those schools. Because if we don't build a strong foundation in that elementary school, then every student is going to struggle. So I'm incredibly proud to share the data with you tonight and incredibly proud to be a part of Tullahoma City.
Do y'all have any questions for her? Because we'll let her go on if you don't.
I think it's great. It is extremely something to be proud of. I do have a question, because you're analyzing, is this the first time that we've had kind of the data analyzed? I'm a data guy, so I love it. Do we know what with the English, do we know why? Do we see any correlation to why we are dropping in that?
So from what I understand, some of the data in the high school has dropped over the last few years, grad rates. I can assure you, Dr. English, being first year at this high school, he is looking into the data, and Dr. Flowers is becoming a part, and this may be something you'll be excited to hear as well. We are creating an instructional leadership team, and Dr. Flowers will be a part of that. So we will be going on instructional tours throughout the schools, looking at our data as well as looking at teacher practices, because in order to analyze data, like you know as well, we got to have more than just a data point. We got to get into the classrooms. We got to see how the curriculum's being used. We have to look at teacher practices. So along with professional development that we're intentionally trying to develop and strengthen, we are looking at all the avenues. So I would love to sit here in 2 years and be able to celebrate the growth that Dr. English and Dr. Flowers and all of our instructional team are going to be able to establish, getting in and digging into this data that we have.
Anything else, Dr. Boone? So we're going to let her go ahead and go because she actually has something else to go to. And I think next we'll have Dr. Treadaway, and he's with TVA. And I think that there's been some question about TVA and the amount of money it looks like we're spending on the number of students. And I think you're really going to be very surprised at how many people are serviced by such a little amount of money, even though it's not a little amount of money. This is Dr. Treadaway. Thanks, Glenn.
We were in Chattanooga. I didn't get the segue.
I'm like, I don't get it yet. HPVA.
Oh, right. Everybody else, but Virtual Academy of Tullahoma. Instead of Tullahoma.
Oh, you're discussing how much energy you're building. So I'll be respectful of everyone's time and go ahead and get started. First off, I appreciate the organization of this meeting between these two boards. I really appreciate our school board, and we appreciate the work that you do as well. So as our board chair said, I'm Chris Treadway. I'm the director of the Virtual Academy, and I also supervise the alternative school, which is also housed there in the CSS building. We only have 4 full-time employees at TVA. There's me, and so my role is kind of split between Tullahoma Virtual Academy and the alternative school. And we have a career and graduation coach. We have a middle school teacher, and then we have a teacher who teaches digital CTE, digital arts, and in the spring, at no additional cost to the board because he's already an employee, he will also begin teaching a recording arts class. And our maintenance department, actually, I guess it was a cost of a wall to our board. Everything else was purchased with school innovation grant funds. And as Dr. Stevens alluded to, we are implementing 7th grade next year. Again, we're implementing 7th grade at no additional cost. The same teacher will be able to teach both middle school grades. And we're very aware, Dr. Stevens reminds me,
yes, we want to grow, but we want our growth to be, we want to be able to sustain it, and we want to make sure that our hiring practices are with merit, and we're just not, we're not hiring anyone if the need's not there. You guys mentioned a lot about growth, and I really see this as an opportunity to be able to grow without having to build new buildings. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go through the presentation. So in the fall of 2020, our school board began discussing initially what would a virtual school look like. And through those discussions in 2021, it ended up in our 5-year strategic plan. So with that 5-year strategic plan, we have certain goals. One of those goals is student social interaction. And if you think about a true virtual school, we're really not a true virtual school. We're more of a hybrid school because we do have social interactions with our students. They come in to the cafe frequently. They come in to take midterms. They can come in and see our tutor. They can come in and complete their finals. And sometimes they just come in to hang out. So one of the things we focus on is student-to-student interaction, because what we don't want them to do is just become socially isolated. That's not healthy. Some of the other things, we really worked hard to connect with our homeschool families, and we want to show them the option that we are. And in no way are we trying to say one option is better than the other option. We're simply allowing them to see what it would look like if they come to TVA, if they become part of the Tullahoma City School System. And from there, we hope they join us. And we have had several families join. We've started applications for next year, and we also have several homeschool. As Dr. Stevens mentioned, we have several out-of-district students, tuition-paying students that are also joining. And again, we don't have to worry about space. We exist in a virtual environment. All right, as far as the startup goes, we received a grant for around 750. I think it was 750. I think the presentation says 759,500 for the Innovative High School Models Grant, and those funds actually carried us for the first 2 years. Well, those funds expired June 30th of last year. However, we were able to pay in advance, so we were able to bank some of the money into the future to pay for things, to prepay, you might say, to prepay for a lot of the instructional programming that we were going to need this year. So we do have our stipends and salaries that are on the current budget in the general fund. All right, so everyone in this room is concerned about cost. All elected officials are concerned with cost, yeah? So the first goal, once we realize, all right, we don't have grant money anymore, right? It's different when you're using grant money as opposed to taxpayer money. The first thing we said, how can we cut technology costs while continuing to offer high-quality instructional programming? There were a couple of things. We really, really liked them, but there's a difference between what you really, really like and what you can pay for, right? And so several of those things we said, we're not going to be able to do that. And so we really carved out. I feel like we carved away some of the nice to have, and we left the need to have. So I feel really good about what we're left with. Is some of that other stuff super nice? Yeah. Do you need it? Maybe it's helpful, but we have what we need. So we were able to get rid of that. You can see on the presentation paper, the tutor online, and we're not just getting rid of things to get rid of them. We're actually looking at, you mentioned you're a data guy, we're actually looking at student usage. Are students using these things? And in many cases, if they are, hey, let's pump the brakes on it and see how we can make this work. If it's not being utilized, then why are we paying for it? And so it doesn't make sense to do that. And so that was just it was a very in-depth process, but that was just a little bit of it. Another thing, getting ahead of myself here. Goal 2, reduce instructional costs while continuing to offer high-quality instructional programming. Now, instructional costs. I told you we have 4 full-time employees. Our other teachers are adjunct teachers. What do you think the most expensive part of, well, not the most expensive part, but a large part of the salary is benefits? When you have an adjunct teacher, they work as a part-time employee, you're not having to pay benefits. So just, again, keep that in mind as we start talking about growth and the need to build schools. Well, we don't have to do that because we're existing in a virtual environment. If you need to add one section of chemistry at the high school, then you got to go hire a teacher, right? We don't have to do that. I need somebody to teach one section, so I just do that in the virtual setting. So it keeps you from having to hire a full-time teacher when you only need somebody to teach maybe 1 or 2 classes. Again, just keep that in mind as we continue this discussion about, we're very aware of saving money while at the same time offering a really, really good product. So, my pages aren't numbered, but you can kind of see the full-time teacher cost versus the adjunct teacher cost breakdown, and that's what I was talking about. When you see that, $8,000, $8,500 of that's insurance and medical insurance, dental insurance, retirement. So, as an adjunct, we pay a flat $1,500 per class. We also have stipend bonuses per enrollment. And then if they teach an honors section, then we have another stipend as well. So, we're not, keep in mind, 4 full-time employees. So I'm going to speed up because I know that there's a lot to do here. So I'm going to kind of jump to the end and just kind of show you enrollment. So in 21-22, we had 22 full-time students and 38 flex students. Let me differentiate between full-time and flex. Full-time means they are enrolled in our student information system, which for us it's Skyward. They're full-time at Tullahoma Virtual Academy. A flex student is enrolled at Tullahoma High School. They're full-time there. You can take up to 50%, you can be enrolled at Tullahoma High School and take up to 50% of your classes in the Virtual Academy and still be enrolled as a full-time student at Tullahoma High School. So you can kind of see the steady increase. Next year, we've completed early registration. We currently have 265 students that will be taking at least one flex class. And we have right now 59 full-time students. So when we think about everything that the Virtual Academy offers, we can't just think about it in terms of full-time students, because we offer much more to the Tullahoma City school system and to its students and residents than just our ability to offer a full-time education. Anybody have any questions?
300 plus students. How many students currently attend Tullahoma High School?
A little over 1,000.
Okay, so yes, you're representing approximately a third of your high school population. The one thing that this is the teacher and they coming out. The data I would want to make sure is that you don't have any correlations between that data we saw earlier, your dropping test scores and your growth, and how many students are going to flex path. And I don't know that you've been in business long enough to have that kind of data yet, but you don't want to be throwing, good money after bad when it comes to the cost of this program if it's ultimately failing the students. From just thoughts in my head. Do we have any data with that right now?
Not presently. We just finished our third year of assessments.
They still have access to guidance counselors and all of that at their full-time
Yes.
trauma-informed programs, anything like that with the, okay, good.
So, and I think one of the things that is so interesting to me when I have time to go over and visit, so many of our students work, and they have to work. And it provides that flexibility that they have to have. And they're contributing, not just taking care of themselves, but families. And since I just had boys that graduated college, what I know now is that that is the way of the world. Jobs for kids that are coming out of college, they have lots of flexible hours, lots of flexible days, maybe in the office or from home. And the kids that are doing this now are gonna really kind of have a step up, if that works for them. It wouldn't have worked for me, but if it works for them, it's wonderful.
Yeah, I think that the virtual academy definitely, I'm for that. There's obviously geared toward specific students, I feel like, that would be able to, to do this. What is the cost per student?
So our cost per student is built into the district cost. I have not broken down the cost per our students.
And I guess whenever I'm thinking about, because you mentioned that this would be, that we should keep our eye on this as a way for grades when we're not maybe equipped to handle students in the school. And I guess my thought about that would be, there are obviously certain students that the virtual academy wouldn't work for, and some of the more like lower income, maybe disadvantaged, or even special needs students. And I just wonder, if we, I caution about thinking that this is going to be our savior for, that we're overgrowing before we're ready.
Yeah, certainly. So it is. I don't think we can point to anything and say it's for all students, can we? I mean, we've got to look at each individual situation and then help the parent make an informed decision. It's a great point.
And also, everyone isn't accepted. They have to meet certain criteria in order to be accepted.
And sometimes they don't continue because they are not successful in this format. And so they return back to brick and mortar.
This is no longer a separate school, like it
is on 8th campus. It has its own number, and so he has applied to the state to expand to 7th grade, so it literally is its own school. Yes.
And then when we do test scores, when we think about all the test scores, are these students in the virtual academy, are they weighed in with all of the
So
test scores?
like every other school, the virtual academy receives a letter grade and has students who are tested. The challenge is when you have so few students, so the letter grade earned last year was connected to how many students that took one math test. So until that number gets a little bigger, it's a bit lopsided to look at it and make an evaluation of it.
The sample size isn't large enough yet to be able to say, yeah, I mean, even if it was an A, like, I wouldn't be able to definitively say, yes, it's working.
And are there plans that we're going to continue to go, like, offer this to 6th grade, to 5th grade?
Yes, so our strategic plan, you go on there and look, and actually I think he's got a clip of that chart that's on our website. It talks about each year we're looking at graduating down to envelop other grades. Now, our middle school classes are smaller, and there's purpose there because the approach there is a little different. They actually do both synchronous and asynchronous, so there's time those students actually have to be on with their teacher all at the same time. So it's a little different, and you have to look at what's developmentally appropriate for the age you're serving.
I have one question that's unrelated to anything else that's been asked. But an observation is there are twice as many male students as female students in your flex program. It's a significant driver there. What's the reason?
I don't have an answer for you, sir. I don't know. It is open to all students, and all students, regardless of gender, are equally recruited and given the opportunity. So I would have to look into that a little bit more.
Anything else for Dr. Treadwell?
So you have the hybrid, which I like, right, because it gives them the ability to come in and do. As far as in your school, in the designation, we don't have an SRO at that building because it's not designated. What keeps us from designating that as a school building so that we can get an SRO into that building?
When the list came out of SROs, and I reached out to Chief Williams, and I asked specifically about TDA because the address of TDA is the CSS building. And he pulled the list because that came sort of from the governor's office, and sure enough, it was not listed. I went to a superintendent conference in Gatlinburg in September, and I spoke to the safety coordinator for the state, and I explained and had talked to Chief Williams about the CSS building actually on a day-to-day has numerous students inside. So we have special needs preschool who their attendance shows up at FARA, but they're physically at CSS. We have our Little Cats daycare. We have alternative school. Now again, like they are at the high school or middle schools, right? But they're physically over here. And unfortunately, when I talked to the state person, she asked me to do a follow-up email to explain, because she then asked several superintendents, do some of you have alternative schools on different campuses? Would that be a true need or issue? Almost everyone raised their hand that they had another site that they really need an SRO, but it's not a true school. So the state has the school number. It has the physical address, but obviously it's a virtual school, so it's different. I know that the police department will certainly check on CSS and do walkthroughs. I mean, we would certainly welcome MSR to be there because we do have very different students there of all ages, from 6 weeks to 18, and
vulnerable populations there too. I'm surprised that alternative schools would not be high on the radar.
But let me make a comment about your SROs in your school. This is a general comment about all the schools. I recently had a contest called What Do I Like About Tullahoma? And this was a contest for all K through 5 students in all 4 elementary schools. And we picked 2 from each grade. But there was one particular essay, I'll call it an essay, that I received that will stick with me forever. And it related to your SROs, and I had observed in going to the schools what a special relationship the children have with the SROs.
In every school.
They believe the policeman is their friend, big time. This particular essay said, it's what I like about Tullahoma. I like Tullahoma schools because we have no shootings here. That came from a 2nd grader. For a 2nd grader to even have that thought was terrible. But on the other hand, to have that thought that I'm safe, that's important.
And our SROs, they work so well with our administrators. I'm thinking of a case today with one of our principals at an SRO who made sure a child got home at 4:30 when no one would come to pick up, and they teamed that out together to provide a safe way for the child to be home, to both be present and support the child, or just make sure. It is such an asset to our children, but to our teachers and staff and families as well. So for sure, life-changing.
The SRO program is certainly working.
Yes. Well, thank you for the question about the CSS building.
So we need to talk to Rush, Janice, to get something changed there. Well, last question, and I'm interested, you figured out a way to virtualize this for education. Can I get in on that?
Very good.
You just go see Coach Morris and she'll take care of it. Virtually. Right. Well, it won't
I can do it from the couch or.
If you have not been to the virtual school, I really would encourage you to go. The recording studio that's going to open a track of courses that's not offered anywhere else.
They got a nice lesson.
It's going to be amazing. You can see the instruments, all the things. It's just an amazing place.
I would be remiss if I didn't thank Dr. English. He started the virtual academy, and so I'm just he kind of laid a really good foundation and left me in a really good situation. So we would love to have you guys. If you want to come by, just come on.
He authored that grant that was one of 21 across the state awarded that started the virtual academy. That's Dr. English.
Yeah.
So he does deserve high praise.
Anything else for Dr. Treadway? Because we'll let him go too. And now we're going to have Dr. Dillahay from East Middle School. And also, we were talking about, this is kind of maybe off, and I'm going to be quick. We're talking about our administrative costs. I want you to pay attention that we are doctor.
I was beginning to wonder if they just give those away. I had this young man just asking.
But we have such a fantastic, strong administrative staff. And if they aren't to their doctorate yet, that they're probably close. And they have lots of years of experience, 35 years. Our assistant director, 35 years, Dr. Morris. And that counts for a lot. Okay, Dr. Dillay.
I bought mine fair and square, Mr. Thank you, guys. I'm Woody Dillahay. I've lived in Tullahoma for about 44 of my 47 years. And I basically came tonight to say thank you. I'll start, I was asked to speak about two topics, the SRO and the middle school assistant principal. I was a principal at Robert E. Lee for 5 years, and this is my 5th year at Eastville. I came back to Tullahoma after teaching 5 years in 2003. I thought you guys would maybe enjoy hearing what our students and some of our parents thought about our SRO. So I asked 4 students this morning, just call them in the hall, what do you think about having our SRO? Student 1, I feel a lot more safe. It makes me feel good when I see him walking through the hallways. I know if something happened, I would be protected. Student number 2, I think it's cool. We're better safe than sorry. I think it's better to have one than not. It keeps our school safe, and that's good. Student 3, I feel safe and more protected. If something happened, we'd be okay. Student 4, I feel more safe. He gave us more support with the fighting off campus. We enjoy talking to him. Honest reporting. Parent 1, I think his presence in the school is helpful to the staff. The students feel safer. It makes me feel good with all of the nonsense going on in the world today to know that we have an SRO in the building to protect our students. I go to many athletic events, and I really like seeing the officers there. Parent 2, I feel more comfortable with the SRO in the building. He helps cut down on fighting and other disruptive behaviors, and is there in case something tragic happens. While I know there are no guarantees, knowing someone is there to defend our students is comforting. From my perspective, our SRO's presence in the building is undeniable, but his primary focus is to defend our students should that be required. As an administrator, it is comforting to have our SRO in the building, and at the same time, it's horrifying that we even have to consider such heinous acts against schools. Our society has changed immensely during my 26 years as an educator. I want to personally thank everyone in the room for recognizing the need to support school safety through the addition of student resource officers. There has always been a gray area regarding off-campus incidents. You know, did that happen on campus or off campus? Did it start off and come on? Having our SRO has really helped bridge the gap between home and school, and ultimately gives us a better chance to provide excellent educational opportunities to our students and support our families.
Thank you all so much for providing the SROs. I was also, any questions on SROs before I move on? I was also asked to speak about having full-time assistant principals. When I went to East, the principal split time between East and West, one day at East, one day at West. And I'm very grateful for a full-time assistant principal at East Middle School. I mentioned previously that many changes have occurred since I began my career in education in Fort Valley, Georgia, 26 years ago. In the administrative realm, this is back then, a professionally licensed tenured educator was evaluated once every 5 years, unless they elected to do what was called a portfolio. And that could postpone their evaluation off to the next 5-year period. Today, to sum that up, teachers were evaluated once or twice every 10 years. Today, we evaluate teachers 4 to 8 times per year using the Project Coach model. Some in our state use the team model, which involves 2 to 4 longer evaluations each year. There are other models across the state used as well. Compared to when I began my career, Tennessee administrators conduct 10 to 30 times the teacher evaluations that they did 25 or 26 years ago. If we include mid-year and summative evaluations, that number goes up further. In addition to increased evaluations, disciplinary issues in schools take more time to address. We've gone from smoking porches to tobacco citations. We've gone from corporal punishment to suspensions. This year at East Middle School, we've entered 775 disciplinary incidents into our computers. Many minor infractions would not be included in this number. Nor does this number account for the related parent meetings, DCS referrals, police interactions that go along with some of those disciplinary referrals. To close, our full-time assistant principal has been a true blessing considering the uptick in administrative responsibilities, including evaluations and discipline, but also including IEP and 504 meetings, safety plans, personnel, interviews, school improvement planning, grant monitoring, safety planning and protocol, athletic supervision, administration of state testing, response to intervention, dyslexia ILPD, budget and facilities maintenance, and threat assessments, to name a few. I would like to thank our city and our school system for the much-needed, valuable support provided by our assistant principals. Thank you, guys.
Any questions for Dr. Dillahay?
Talk about the SROs, so I guess you got kind of the school safety bit here, maybe. On top, SROs are one tool, right? What are other steps that we're taking to make sure that we're safe? You talked about threat assessments, what do those entail? Is that a different segment?
Yes,
We'll talk about that later.
Yes. We'll hit on that. Thank you, but there's many things. Thank you, Dr. Dillahay. And now, we're going to move to Dr. Duncan.
Mathis, you saw me stress out my screen here, so you know I heard it.
It's not going to confuse you.
Okay. One of the things that I was going to speak to you all about was our out-of-district numbers. We've kind of reviewed those in terms of the data, so I won't repeat that, but I will let you all know that we do, prior to accepting any out-of-district students, we are required by state law to hold a 30-day open enrollment window, which open enrollment is for our in-district students who wish to request transfers to other schools. So if you were zoned for FARA and would like to request Bel Air, we hold a 30-day window for that. 2 weeks prior to that 30-day window opening, we are required to publish numbers by school and grade level that show how many available seats that we have. So those numbers are currently available on our district website under the enrollment and registration tab, and that tells you exactly how many available or open seats that we have, or in a lot of cases don't have. There are many grades that have 0 because we are not going to, we have a certain class size that we want to maintain. We do a lot of backwards math to make sure those numbers are preserved and that we don't go over in those classrooms and those grade levels.
One of the other things, and you had a great segue for me, Daniel, was some of the changing needs in terms of meeting student needs, addressing student mental health, addressing student behavior, meeting needs of the community. One thing that I would like to stress, and I've been fortunate to have some conversations individually with some of you about this, is a lot of these needs are not unique to the children in our schools. They trace back to roots of larger areas of need in the home. And one thing that I've already been able to talk with Mr. Cook about, and I'm excited to have a new community engagement officer, is working in a coordinated effort to build capacity in our families and in the homes in Tullahoma City to better support students, and not just their academic progress, but their emotional stability, their mental health, and their behavior. So I don't think it will come as any surprise to you all, and I would even say this was pre-COVID, but certainly post-COVID, there's a rise in numbers of anxiety and depression. Helping children at a much younger age face these issues and work to find them resources, appropriate resources that are developmentally appropriate. One thing that I do on a regular basis for a variety of reasons is every Tuesday afternoon at 1 p.m. you can find me at the juvenile court session in Coffee County. And that is a very common theme as the judge is going through the docket and addressing various charges for various juveniles, not just for Tullahoma City schools, but Coffee County schools and Manchester City schools. It's something that we are all working to address. One thing that we are all very cognizant of as educators is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And that, in essence, tells us that if a student is not fed, they are not getting their basic needs met, if they do not have a sense of belonging or a sense of security, that when they come to us at school, they're not ready to learn. Their body, their mental state is in survival mode, and those basic needs must be met before we can begin to teach them higher order thinking skills. So we are very fortunate, and I am extremely appreciative for the funding that allows us to have 2 full-time social workers for our school district, as well as 2 BCBAs, which are behavior consultants. We work in conjunction with a variety of community resources, charitable organizations, to help provide referrals for mental health services, behavioral therapies, food, clothing, gas cards in a lot of situations if there's transportation issues. We are trying to help meet families where they are and help work to get those students ready for school and ready for learning. Some of the area entities that we work quite commonly with is, unfortunately, our crisis. We have to call for a crisis situation. We work with youth villages. Unfortunately, those instances are on the rise. A lot of times that will present itself in a threat assessment situation. If there's a threat of harm to others or to self, we will involve crisis through youth villages. We work very closely with our local DCS office. Fortunately, there are 2 branches within DCS. There is, of course, CPS, which is Child Protective Services, but we also have an FSS branch, which is Family Services. And we have access to them through the court, and that allows us to get those referrals and follow-ups for whether it's mental health service or intensive in-home counseling for the students and the parents, which oftentimes is most beneficial. We contracted this year, our community health coordinator, Gina Bumbalo, and I worked to contract with a company called Care Solace. It's a third party that helps to connect not only our students, but our staff and their families with a variety of services, drug and alcohol services, mental health, any kind of therapy, counseling. And so far this year, we've had 44 referrals with a total of 1,544 communications that this third-party service has helped in establishing appointments, follow-ups for those appointments, follow-ups to the school in terms of the progression of have they been to the appointment? Has there been any kind of follow-up that we would want to reach out and get communication on? One thing that we have noticed, unfortunately, in the last few months is that it is getting increasingly difficult to connect students with those services because of lack of providers. One of our most commonly used services is Health Connect. If you may be familiar with that, they're no longer accepting new patients. Centerstone is another highly used entity in our community. We are fortunate, we do have a school-based therapist that serves 3 of our schools at this time. For 2 years, we have been approved and on a waiting list for a second school-based therapist, but Centerstone has not been able to fill the position. So that leaves 3 to 4 of our other schools that are not receiving those services. We have Mental Health Cooperative. That does help provide a wide range of services, as well as med management, case management, in home. The Rafa Center in Manchester, SOCAT, which is a state-funded grant program that is a wraparound service as well. Global Health Behavioral Therapy, which we are having to utilize more often with much younger children. And then, again, just another example of the difficulty in connecting students with services. Vanderbilt Center for Child Development is one of only 2 places in Middle Tennessee that can assess and diagnose for autism, and they're at an 18-month plus waiting list right now. We do have a very inclusive and a very specific threat assessment program as required by state law. We have, all administrators in all buildings have been fully trained. We have a universal notebook of policy and procedure that we follow. And for reporting as well, we involve our SRO and or a call to law enforcement when necessary. This involves not only threats to others, but threats to self. Tennessee recently passed a mass threat law that involves mandatory zero tolerance for a threat to 2 or more people. So that is something that we have incorporated into our policy and procedure and practice. We do have a lot of behavioral intervention steps. We have teams that get called in. The schools, of course, have their standard procedure and protocol for intervention. At a certain point when it's kind of been tapped out, then we will call in. A lot of times I'll receive a phone call, the social workers, the behavioral consultants, and we work together with the parents and sit down as a team and look for root causes, potential innovative ideas, things that we have, resources that haven't been tapped into yet, and try to create a full 360 safety net around that student for plan and intervention. Sometimes, unfortunately, those aren't successful, and we do have to involve the court system so that we can mandate certain referrals and interventions, bench ordered. One thing that we are seeing is difficulty in serving juveniles at a much younger age with much higher needs than we're accustomed to, and just simply having resources that are geared or appropriate for an elementary student who has maybe special needs and a high behavioral need issue. There are just not providers that are equipped for those types of cases at this time, especially not in Middle Tennessee, rural Middle Tennessee areas. So if I were to make request, just as working with you all in partnership, is that I would like to continue looking at this as not just a school system issue, but as a community effort, something that behooves us all to work to address, again, going back to that building capacity in families, not just to have better students, but to grow more productive, healthier citizens for our community. That was a whole lot of summary. So if you have specific questions, by all means.
Anything for Dr. Duncan?
Just to I was doing just previously with trauma informed program, they were using the Y-Tribe
Yes.
over there, and it seemed to be working out relatively new. Another thing that school system is offering is MRT. They're going to start offering MRT in the school system and have a provider. It's like almost like an RTI provision for behavioral plans. And I know that if you're going to juvenile court, a lot of times the court will offer MRT. I didn't know if that's something maybe we could get our SROs trained in to provide, and that may ease some of that burden and increase that relationship. So just a thought.
We did implement Y-Try.
It's oral cognitive therapy, and a lot of the juvenile courts will order that. Well, not just juvenile, there's an adult program as well, but it's becoming more and more popular because they have a specific juvenile curriculum it's almost like a step, it takes about 16 weeks, I think, to go through it, but some schools are implementing it on campus, and it's now something that if you're in juvenile court, you may get sentenced to, and they have to go off campus, and it becomes another issue trying to get them there and everything, but it can address some of the behavioral issues on campus as well, and it may be something, if we had our SROs, like a training opportunity for our SROs, that they could provide that's relatively cheap, and a way to combat some of that. And that's something that I saw some of the school systems were looking into. And I'm glad that you're going to juvenile court, because that's a relatively new thing too for our school systems to be involved in that. But the behavior at school, they're there, 7 to 8 hours a day. Those probation officers and those things, I mean, that's very important to have that data, and that piece was missing for so long with our juvenile court system. So kudos to Tullahoma City Schools for getting ahead of the curve on that.
Some moral or cognitive therapy?
Yes.
Yes. And we have implemented Y-Try this year across all our schools. We're holding small group sessions, especially in our alternative school. That's a program that we are implementing there.
Middle schools, it seems to be pretty effective. So.
Yes. We've got our social workers and our BCBAs have a rotating schedule where they go to each of the schools and have small group sessions with Y-Try.
Yes.
And we're working on training the trainer to be able to
train the trainer. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that trauma-informed stuff is really good stuff. So.
Anything else for Dr. Duncan? Thank you. The next thing we were going to talk about were the harder to fill positions and the space challenges, but we've already talked about that, so we're going to, are y'all good with all of that? Okay, we're going to skip that. And did we talk about the first-year teachers making $50,000?
We did not.
Okay.
So a law that Tennessee put forth last year is to have all first-year teachers with no experience making $50,000 as a starting salary by 26-27. So every school system is tasked with changing their scale to get that first line to that level. So as we were working our budget, looking at where we are now with that budget and moving toward 50, a change that we made is we're getting our budget to a little over $46,000. Our finance committee, which is Andy Ritt, Kim Usselton, Hank, and me, we worked on that, and we were tasked with, let's set this goal so that next year we can bump up, say, to 48, and then we can hit 50. So in doing that, we had to then look at how do we impact everyone else. We want to keep the steps, which we were able to do that you've heard about. And we like demonstrating value with everybody getting the same increase across the board. When we do our proposed budgets and raises, the one alteration or caveat to that is our true first-year teachers right now, they will actually, there's 10 of them, they will actually see a 3% increase and not 2%. Because if we left them at 2%, they would actually make less than what the new teachers will come in and make next year. So they're the only group that got a bit of a change to that budget. So laws do make things tricky as you're trying to manage all these competing things and hit those requirements.
Okay, do you want to talk about the fair project?
Yes.
We talked about that.
We did talk about that.
Okay.
I don't think so.
Anything else about that? Okay, and Pat or Teresa, do you all want to offer anything about the Orcutt Winslow report?
Do I need to come up?
Come on up here.
Oh.
Come on down. If you think about our schools and they were evaluated, which school would you think that they would say needed the most work?
I would have said East Lincoln.
Before the new East Lincoln.
Yeah. Oh,
Right, but Bel
yeah,
Bel Air. Well, that's what we all thought. That's what we all thought. But okay,
it's the high school.
the high school. But okay,
Okay, and I think it was 2021, we had a very reputable firm out of Nashville called Orcutt Winslow, and to come and assess all of our campus buildings. And those assessments included, which they called, which of course the site, and then what they called the envelope, which was the outside of the building, and then the inside structure, as well as the mechanical and the electrical of each school. And which was surprising because I probably would have thought Bel Air as well, but the top 3 schools that they recommended that we replace or heavily overhaul, yeah. Well, the first was Tullahoma High School, then Fair Elementary, then East, and then East.
I said East Lincoln, but I meant East.
And I'll tell you the reason why Fair and East Middle. What I read in the summaries were, although Bel Air has very good bones on the outside, it needed some work inside, which we've done. We have nonstop in I'm sorry, I'm blank every time I think of the word.
we have new ceiling tiles. We painted
Yes.
it. We have new
Remodeling.
HVAC lights.
Yes.
We've done a lot.
And we've also
Still needs a lot.
yes, and we've also had a lot of testing to make sure there wasn't, anything, because it is an old school. It was Bel Air and Tullahoma High School were both built in the 1950s, I believe. So we're coming up on 75 years for those schools. But like I said, in the way that things were built back in the day, they were the bones, like the high school, the bones of the high school. But anyway, getting back to the reason that I saw in the summaries was, and this was in the 70s, and I think some board members may have taken a trip to California, and the open concept, and all of the map.
You won't ever get over that, will you?
No. It was the thing then, at that time. And what they said is, in the report, is that open room concept in the pods, the separate pods, is not conducive to a 21st century learning, teaching and learning for the students. And also there's challenges with with technology.
Yeah,
because
safety, technology, the environment.
Yes.
What's most concerning to me is those schools you mentioned are not the ones high on our radar because of growth. So ultimately, that's like every school in our district.
Yes.
But
we're building onto it, and of course, Fair also did not have a cafeteria. So there's if you look at that, although they were very well maintained, they're still aged, and they're still, as far as East and Fair goes, the open room concept, it's very hard for teachers to teach in that environment, and especially for some kids.
did they change East Middle? Is that what your question?
Yeah, because
They did, but the way Fair is configured with that round, it was impossible to do that. And the codes, fire codes and everything, airflow, I mean, there's quite a bit of issues. And when we looked at what we had available to us for bonds to build the schools, FAIR was the one that was really all that we could do at the moment. And that's why we chose FAIR. And we had been looking at FAIR for many, many years.
Since the 90s when I taught there.
Yeah, it's been, but we had architectural plans developed back when Dan was still here. And so we had those available to look at and different options that we could, and I think we've done a really good job.
What's the projected open date at this point? Do we,
August 25?
August 25.
And what we hope, the round, the main pod, that is actually very appropriate for early childhood. They have different needs and space use as opposed to K-5. So we will repurpose that, and we hope to make it an early childhood center where our little cats and all of our preschool UPK special needs can all be there and have typical peers and interact together. So we are going to reuse that space, which will then help with some of the rooms that we need on the east side, and potentially allow TBA actually to expand out into some spaces as well. Well, and also with the high school, because of the age of the building and how many times it's been added on to, there's some, you're either going to have to, their recommendations was look at a different site, stay with the site you're on and just tear it all down, or totally remodel. I'll use that word, remodel, which is, just do what we've done in the past. So we'll be looking at that, and we do study this quite often.
Capital plan, I think, would be very
It is, but you've also got to look at funding, because what our city bond employees, they let us know, okay, we have this much available. Our city bond what is the correct term for that?
Well, we have financial advisors.
Financial
We monitor,
advisor.
Hank and I look at where we're at, and then we've got a financial advisor.
Okay, there you go. So that's what we look at, and we have that obstacle, and I know there are other systems, I think they have maybe had property increases or tax increases, and we don't want to do that. We want to maintain what we have. Right. So we're looking at everything and what we have available, and then our maintenance, ongoing maintenance is, like in the report, very well maintained. So I think our maintenance staff does a really good job, and what they can do, we make sure it gets done. So,
Any questions for Teresa? Pat also serves on maintenance. Yep.
Yeah, well, and that's my big issue, always the school safety, as well as the capital and the kind of plan. And, I do touch on hers and touch on what you said. We don't want to end up having to do a tax increase, right? If we do have to do one, not this one, maybe another one, but incrementally versus getting into a situation where we say, hey, because we haven't done something and we weren't prepared, instead of that, 2 cents, 3 cents, 5 cents, 10 cents, we're gonna have to hit you with a 50-cent tax raise so that we can build this that we've gotta have tomorrow.
what we've been able to do in the past is we've been able to pay these off and then start anew. So that's how we.
As long as we're able to continue that, as long as it's funded enough and we're able to continue that, we don't get into a situation where that's not enough. And that's what I want to make sure that.
That would be a hospital.
That would be definitely a hospital.
$100
million.
Yeah.
Well, our city schools, I've looked at some of your financials, and you guys are in a better position with roughly the same budget than our entire county of Coffee County. So, good job with that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions for
Board
them?
reserves.
I know, we could talk about maintenance and buildings forever, and obviously, I think somewhere on down the road, we do need to have a meeting just about the high school in the future. You know, because that would be just a meeting. Okay, good, thank you, Teresa, thank you, Pat. And now, Andy is going to talk to you, because I think this is just very interesting, it's public information. You all would like to have busing and buses. Yes.
One question, is everybody doing this?
No.
Yes.
Andy, you want to know how many following Andy?
Do I?
Only Kim can tell you.
He said, earlier, Kim had said something paraphrasing that the people qualified would be talking or knowledgeable. I'm not knowledgeable about busing at all, other than just from the specifics of it. I've been on a bus, that's about it. So,
You know the financials.
right, the financial, but y'all are, like me, out in the community, you get questions about busing. Why doesn't Tullahoma City have buses? And so, but we've actually done a lot of studying, and this isn't to advocate for busing or, to discourage against it, but just to let y'all know, we do look at it, we do consider it, but as you can see, there's benefits to it, but there's also cost as well. And just, kind of current state, now we have 10 school buses, is what we currently own. One of those is pre-2000, it's a 1999 bus. All the others were purchased in the 2000s. We do have on the budget, I think this year we're going to replace one. We should be replacing another one here before too long. From a staffing standpoint, we have 5 bus drivers. One of those is the transportation supervisor as well. That also does busing, and then we also have 8 aides that help with the bus drivers and kind of tries to maintain law and order on the buses. We run 5 routes in the morning and in the afternoon, and then 3 at lunchtime. We 68 students with disabilities, will ride the buses and get them back and forth to school. The next page, we just got to give the legal guidance, which is like any good law. It's very, gives you options both ways. It has the magic word "may" in there. So I'm not going to read it to you, but we can provide transportation with Montana. We don't have to provide transportation. Now, when we get into, if we wanted to go to full, transportation, school bus transportation for a startup, it's significant startup cost. We think we'd have to add 26 buses. This is looking at other school districts that are comparable to our size. We'd have to add 28 drivers, especially if you have full-time drivers. If you're adding in all the expenses on top of that becomes costly. I stated earlier we have 8 aides. We don't know how many aides we have to add, but it'd be a significant number from there. So we'd still have to study that, how many we'd have to add. Now, the aides aren't near as expensive as the actual bus drivers or the buses itself. And then just all the costs that come on top of that, the benefits and insurance. We'd also have to look at, the upkeep, the maintenance costs, the location for the buses. We need video surveillance and video. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on with this. And we'd also need, a transportation office as well. We need people to control, what's going on, your dispatcher and things like that. And they're going to need an office as well. So you can see this is adding up quickly. And if you go to the next page, we have in here, almost $6.3 billion is what the initial startup cost is. And that's the, $145,000 per bus. And then you can see all the lists of those stuff. Now, the first part's kind of an upfront one-time cost. That's $3.8 million for the buses itself. All the other costs below that, there's $2.5 million of annual recurring costs. So that's going to be the insurance, the maintenance, the driver, the driver costs, their personnel costs, the aides, software, and then the office personnel costs. So
that's going to be just a continual cost. And then that's not also taking into account, if we have to go out and buy land and we have to do some infrastructure there. So really the $6.3 million is almost, I'd say it's a floor, it's a meet, and it actually would, in reality, would be more expensive than that. So with the, and also, going to the buses, of course, I have that, I call it an upfront, but it's not, it's not an upfront one-time cost. We'll have to get on the cycle, and then we'd be replacing 4 or 5 buses a year at some point. Now, those buses would last us a while, but then at some point, there's, of course, no telling at that point how much they would cost. So it's, it's something that it would be a lot to bite off, in a big financial drain for the district to do it. But just because y'all have, get some of those questions too, I just want y'all to know, here's the magnitude, if we ever went down this path, that it would cost us. A lot of challenges with it on the next page. One is, if we're going to have that many drivers, we have a hard enough time getting 5 drivers, much less, even more than that. And then, of course, y'all driven around on our roads, a lot of our subdivisions, they're just not really configured for buses in a lot of ways. So there have to be either bus stops or things like that we would have to put in. Locating land to house the bus fleet. Here's another one, the school start. Of course, our school start at 8 o'clock in the morning. To go to busing, we probably have to stagger those school starts and school stops, so that's another challenge. Of course, weather, that's one of the advantages we have with the school district now is that, you don't have to make an early call on weather a lot of times. You see it around here. Of course, the school, I know when I was in school, I'd always be frustrated. Why am I going to school? And Coffee County's out. They actually, declared it out yesterday, and I had to go. But that gives us the flexibility. But if we did that, we'd have to build in more inclement weather days and things like that. And also there's a component of additional after-school work. You got to make sure all the kids get home. If they don't, then you got to, or no one's there, you got to bring them back, and you got to try to figure out how to get them home. So there's a lot of work there, and just the additional student discipline on buses. Now, we also brainstormed on what are the benefits. There are benefits to it as well. It's not as long a list, but one is, you'd have access to daily transportation, the students would. That's a good thing. Going down to my last point, truancy numbers would decline, most likely. I mean, we don't know that for sure, but I'm pretty sure they would. And then we could rezone the schools. That's always a difficult choice, is to try to rezone schools, but the busing might be able to help with that some. And then the big one, I think, would be job creation. I mean, we have a lot of jobs we can add almost immediately if we did it, but so there's some benefits to it, but I do think the cost is our current system is currently prohibitive, but at least this gives you something that y'all can think about, or somebody talks to you about it. At least you have some numbers to back it up. So, any questions?
I'm not advocating for school buses, but another benefit I think that you missed on there was that on some of our roads that seem to need to require improvements or upgrading signs, that it only occurs at high traffic times of school pickup. So if the buses were taking kids in, then those roads wouldn't be congested during school pickup.
Correct. That's a good point. Yes, that's the congestion.
When talking with our police department too, that was something that they had talked about as a benefit. It's not just the congestion, but accidents that happen in the mornings. Our benefit is, we do sometimes wait till the last minute to call school off, but that's not always great that we still have parents driving on the roads when they probably shouldn't be. We're telling them to stay home, stay off the roads, but they've got to get the kids to school still.
Yeah.
And that's a safety issue for them. And looking at the
typically, it's in that situation, usually we're going to be closed if, of course, the city's recommended it too.
Yeah.
The one that always frustrated me as a child is that there wasn't a snowflake in the area. Coffee County was out of school and Franklin County was out of school because it always snows on the mountain somehow.
Yeah. One of the things I'm looking, like the potential startup cost, I think even looking at buses one, have we done kind of a poll with the parents to see who would take advantage? 26 buses, 78, that's enough buses for 2,028 kids to ride the bus. Would we need to start up with 26 buses to fit? I don't think there's 2,000 kids that would ride the bus, but maybe we've got 200. Maybe we need 2 buses. Maybe we need one.
Well, I think also,
You have to
offer it for everybody.
There's a lot of voices there. So I didn't get any of that.
You'd have to open it up to everybody. You'd have to be prepared for, offering it. I mean, you can't have just this area or just this area or just
They
these.
say, hey,
You can have
kids
bus stops,
that
like you
live.
said.
You can do bus stops.
You could do bus stops, and I think that you could strategically do those bus stops where you have hardship areas, those areas that are more than a mile and a half away. Think about your Ledford Mill Grove, and your north side of town. All of those kids who live in those areas are more than a mile and a half away from school. And I think that you could phase it in with a bus stop. I'm not advocating, I'm just saying, if you wanted to do it, where there's a will, there's a way. We all know that. But if you want to do it, then you could potentially look at your hardships first.
We do see kids, I go out on a rainy day, and I see kids walking to school in the pouring down rain. And so there are, that would be my question is, and again, I'm not advocating. Well, I am advocating. If there's a need, I'm advocating, right? If my constituents say, hey, we have a need, then I'm going to ask the questions, and I'm going to probe and try to find a way to do it if it's possible. And, is that not something that we can say, hey, we want to maybe look at how to phase it in? And first, it's accessible to those that live out a certain range, or it's accessible to those who are low income, their parents don't have vehicles, these kids are walking to school. And I think it's justifiable, because that's a safety issue. We also don't have sidewalks everywhere. And that's a cost for us to put sidewalks everywhere. I think that we get totaled up one time, and we're looking at $18-20 million for us to put sidewalks in where we need them. And so the cost of that versus the cost of something here. And so that would be my kind of ask is, this is a huge number, and I think it is a scary number, but I feel like there might be a less scary approach.
I'd like to know
If we look at a needs-based type deal, and that would kind of be my challenge, is let's not look at the worst-case scenario. Let's look at, is it possible to help some of these that we know need help?
Yeah, I think we also need to think about, as we're planning for the future, I know from working in Bedford County, if Tullahoma City Schools all of a sudden started opening up a busing, we're going to get a huge, massive influx into Tullahoma also. So as we're planning for the future, that's something we would also need to think about, because a lot of the families do not come to Tullahoma because there's not buses, but they've said they want to live in Tullahoma. So that's something else to think about. And and I don't know how we would phase it in, because legally we would have to offer it to every student. You couldn't do it.
Principal Moore, did you have some?
Just as somebody that has a CDL and has driven a sped route, the infrastructure in Tullahoma is not made for driving a bus through the neighborhoods. If it's a four-way stop and you got a car there, you got to let the car go. You got to swing out really, really wide not to go in these ditches. So there would have to be, you talk about sidewalks and things like that. There's a lot of road work to be done on that side as well to get buses through neighborhoods. So just throwing that out there as just somebody that has lived it, done it. You may have more work in roads than you have in sidewalks down the road.
Yeah, and I think these are all valid and not discounting, but I do think that this can't be, the worst case scenario can't be the only scenario. There's got to be.
Oh, I don't think we get the worst case.
I don't think we get worst case.
We didn't even come close to getting the worst case scenario.
Manchester has buses. right?
Sure.
Manchester City is not.
Manchester City.
Coffee County.
Coffee County, Bedford County, Bedford County's a huge area.
And they have to stagger their school sort.
They do. I think that would be one of the hardest.
7:25.
Amy, tell about your kids.
I have 3-year-olds that have to be picked up at 5:50 in the morning to get to school at 7:25. Because there's not enough buses, there's not enough bus drivers, and we're putting 3-year-olds with special needs on a bus at 5:50 in the morning.
And then I've heard also like students that ride the bus and say a bus driver calls in sick during the day and
That happens at least once a month at my school where, hey, bus 57 will not be running this afternoon. Even though bus 57 brought all these kids to school, the driver got sick or something happened, or they're having to cover other multiple routes, and then we're having to call all of these parents and saying, now you have to find a way home for your
It's
child.
happening daily in Franklin County.
Yeah, there's just not enough bus drivers.
It's been happening since the beginning of the time, the beginning of the buses. These are all, and I'm not discounting what anybody's saying.
Worse now.
I think it is worse now than
It is worse.
significantly worse now. I think also because of the behaviors on the bus.
Yes, very much.
Because a lot of people will not do it.
In Franklin, I know in Franklin County, I'm getting phone calls still daily with Carson School that this bus will not be running, that bus will not be running. And all bus drivers are pretty much contracted now. They don't work for the school system, they're contracted out, which means you can't get anybody to do it. There's not a lot of teeth and you can't be like, okay, dude, you're fired, because then you have nobody. So, it's.
If we're comfortable with this is the answer that we want to march out and tell our residents that this is.
Well, I think
This is
I
why
think it
this
is
is the-
settled that if we offer it to, one, we got to offer it to
all.
We have to set it up to be able to accommodate everybody.
I
So,
mean, they have exceptions for special needs now, right? So that's not a one or all, that's, you have
That's a
special.
federal.
We
But
are.
the state law is, Debbie, I'm the board.
No.
go ahead.
But state law is you offer it to one child in your system, you offer it to everybody in the system, subject of course to the distance from the school. But transportation for special needs students is part of special ed mandate. So it's a separate consideration.
So that'll be something we need to talk to Rush and Janice about, is looking at, can you phase things like that, or offer it to those who need it, right?
We can under the law now.
That's federal law.
So you're asking the question, if you change the law,
State.
the state law to provide transportation for some students. Yeah, that would, if the law were changed, we have a lot of flexibility, but that's true for a lot of things.
I don't like the answer, no.
We're not saying
I'm
no.
not saying no.
I know, I'm not saying
This
you're
isn't saying
saying
no, this is just saying, this is information that shows.
Right, no, I know.
We need to be judicious if we go down this path. We need to
Yeah,
make sure it
$6 million.
means something that our constituents actually
Just to
want.
start.
too.
Just to
If you
start.
have $6 million, let's just say, to start it, would you rather spend it on buses, or would you rather spend it per capita of your students? And I think the answer that I'm
I
coming
wouldn't
up
do
with
$6 million
is
either. I don't think
put it back in the schools for the students, for the curriculum, for the teachers.
Well, and you're looking at the infrastructure too, as far as like the roads and everything else that would have to be modified to
And
accommodate
also
the.
with the heavy buses on there, it seems like that it would chew the roads up.
I worry about safety concerns if you had bus stops too.
Yes.
And the liability of having buses, there's liability.
Absolutely.
Well, at least there's some basis in sharing information. That doesn't mean that it's a no, we won't look further, we won't talk further. And by the way, this is Scott Bennett, our board secretary. He's our board attorney, I'm so sorry. I know there's tons more stuff that we could share, but it's already been long, y'all have had a long day, you've had a long meeting. And I think it would be good if you all make notes of things, like we would really like to hear about whatever. I can talk about public education all day long, every day. And lots of the rest of us could too. And we're happy to answer any of your questions. It doesn't have to be in a formal meeting like this. You can call, email us. We all have regular school emails. So, but if we wanted to set up like quarterly, we talked about this with Daniel one day after our meeting, a quarterly thing where we come and just give a short report about something. Y'all look at that. I know you already have a lot going on, but we would be happy to do that.
I think it's too much pressure to do a report, but I think a roundtable or a group like this to involve, just to have a conversation, whether it be informal, things that are coming up, questions that we have, questions that you have. I see it, the informal conversations probably carry more weight than formal reports.
And you can get feedback.
You need feedback.
That's very helpful.
And then, and also with the board liaison, I mean, that's an option as well. I mean, we can.
The problem with the board liaison that I see from my perspective is, while you have one board liaison, they can talk to you, but if they talk to us, they either talk on violating sunshine laws. So we don't always get, and it's hard to remember if you're that guy and you have other board meetings and there's so much time that passes and you guys only have one meeting a month. There's too much of a lapse and a gap in the sharing of information, and it's really too much to put on one person to do that.
Well, I was talking about the monthly meetings, as far as like sharing the information. I don't see how that would violate a sunshine law, but
No. If they come, the only way that we get the information that they get from you is if they share it with us in their alderman comments. And so there's this lapse. In other words, the rest of us, the majority of your board up here, and this is for the future board, think about this for new people coming in. They don't always have all the information, and we're looking at potentially having a whole new cabal up here. They're gonna need this quarterly meeting to be very beneficial going forward. A benefit that we didn't have, a lot of us, when we started.
And obviously not this long.
Yeah. No. You wouldn't have to have it this long because we'd be meeting regularly.
But all I'm saying,
there's a lot of assets we have and stuff we're going to have to replace or renovate at some point. So us all discussing it and having it on a radar is a good thing.
There's only one authority that I have, and that's when to call a meeting adjourned. So we are.
Well, we want to thank you for having us and the questions and the feedback. We appreciate it. And I want to thank all of y'all.
I'm Assistant Principal at Vera. Nice to meet you. No, I'm sorry. I know you because you're a board.
Never miss your favorite shows again. For an additional $12 a